Welcome back. It is the September 6th, 2023 episode of the Four Color Fossils. I'm your guest host. Next week, Micah, Graphic Man, will return, and that'll be on September 13th, and the show will be on, go back to its customary format. It will no longer be the summer replacement. So, with no further ado, let's see who we have here in our lineup.
Sorry, I saw my own face.
So we have Puppetine. We've got Froggy. We've got Jambo. We've got Paulo and Eric. And Meyer's trying to get in. And hopefully we'll have Mike McCarthy coming in, the famous Memphis cartoonist and filmmaker. I just don't know how many spaces I'm allowed by Dana from StreamYard. Let's see what people are saying.
I'll probably be tapping out early tonight anyway, Gratu. So.
I don't blame you if you saw me and you went Jambo. I didn't say this shit.
All right, so that's just people getting Eric the link. And Michael says, hello, Fossil Squadron, and everyone's doing their normal Walton's greeting. Hello, Eric. Hello, John Boy. And what was
hello, Michael.
Gosh, I'm not good at this, man. What did I just do? Well, anyway, I clicked on something wrong. Maranya says, good evening, everyone. And Comic Book Frog says hi. All right, guys. Well, so let's have Jambo. He says he has to head out early. So let's see what you've got there, Jambo.
Okay, I just grabbed a box next to me here because didn't really get much this week. So I just thought I'd show a few things I had close to me here.
Topic school.
It's from 1947. Look at this Catholic Comics. And a nice little Abner there, tip top.
Yep.
From 43.
You're blocking the woman behind you.
Jackson Roykirk loves it when I do that. He would much rather see me than the woman behind me here.
I've heard that.
Hey, behind every man is a good woman.
This is number 12, volume 5 from 1941. Let's see, guys. What about some more Little Abner? This is from 1940.
Wow.
40.
Little Abner.
And what about some Wonder Comics? This is number 15. A little worse for the wear, but still cool. Alex Schomburg cover.
Yeah, that's a famous cover. I've seen that a lot in books.
There's a Black Terror, number 21.
Zach, look away.
Look away from this one. Torchy, number 3.
That's not Johnny.
Detective.
Whoa.
Nice.
Let Robin die.
Yeah, let him die. It's like the Pit and the Pendulum, huh?
Oh, good golly death, Batman.
There's Thrilling Comics.
Man, that almost looks like Little Abner is doing a guest appearance in that.
Well, that guy's getting canceled tonight.
Yeah, that guy with the hair, the Elvis hair.
Yeah.
His name is Dr.
Captain.
Strange.
That's Doctor Strange.
Yeah. Apparently, I can only let 6 people on at a time. So if in a second, if someone could volunteer to go away for a few minutes and then come back.
Wait,
I have to
That's
in
easy.
the wings, but I can't get him on.
Do I have to come back?
Well, if you don't want to come back, but I wanted you here for the whole show. I should have sprung for the $25 to get the fancy StreamYard, but these are not good economic times.
No,
Yeah,
it
these
hits
are
my puppet wallet.
This is some great stuff. I feel like I'm looking at the
Yes.
color section in the price guide. The slick pages.
He must really want to be. He wants to impress the puppets.
Here's one of my favorites.
Well, he sure has brought the cheesecake for me.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
My favorite
great.
stuff.
Which is really unusual for Jambo.
I'm right. You would never tell by all the posters behind him.
So Black Cat, number 4.
Jambo's
Yeah.
showing fire,
Yeah.
but fire
My favorite
books? Is that
ladies.
the new? I hear everyone saying that's fire. Is that the new way to
Fire.
say?
Yeah, that's what the kids say.
Oh, okay.
Ace of spades,
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
called.
it-
Well, I know when to hold them.
Don't say that, Jackson.
Oh wow. Hey, I don't like putting the words up, blocking the page. I'll put it up in a second.
Phantom Lady.
That's great. Gorvidal says, I voted for Robin to die when Starlin gave us a choice. Really see the point in sidekicks. I couldn't stand Boy when he appeared in the Tarzan films, for example. Well, Boy is not
One
from
for
Edgar
Eric.
Rice Burroughs' books.
Wow.
There you go, Eric. Real love, buddy. And here's some more.
I got that off the rack.
Here's some more cheesecake for you guys.
Whoa, mama.
That's the
Nice.
entire Cheesecake Factory.
Dave Stevens.
That's
Yeah.
your mama.
This
That's
one
not-
has some of the Irving Claw pictures inside of it also. So.
If you'd like to part with that, I gladly accept it.
Okay, now this is modern, but
Still good.
still Betty. All right.
As long as you don't open it and see the terrible art inside.
Right. Just look at Betty's picture on the front there.
Don't think about the bad
Take the
artist.
photo and frame it. You don't.
That's
need-
why with the new stuff, I just right click and save as.
Here's some more new stuff.
Ooh.
That no good web slate. No, I won't do that here.
There's Professor Hulk. Dr.
Yeah.
Orloff, yeah. I could show you some more Golden Age, or we can be done and let somebody else give.
Go ahead and put me in the background.
If you're
Roger,
gonna,
just for a
if
minute,
you're- are you gonna stick around or what?
I will stick around.
Well,
I've got a report I need to do before tomorrow.
Okay,
So
then why don't you
if-
do both of your turns now, and then I can get Mike in. So
Okay.
just keep going and show what you plan to
Okay.
show.
We'll show some more stuff here out of this box.
That's
There's
crazy.
a Space Western number 42. Cowboys and spaceships and aliens and all that good stuff. And a nuclear explosion. Can't go wrong, right?
This was used back in the early 70s, and it came back recently with liberals.
Dope was used back in the 90s.
That's still
Dope,
it's still used today.
They used- I think they used Tough also there for a little while in the early 70s.
Yeah. I remember
Man,
that.
these are great comics, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, but no one uses sick anymore. Now we use sick lips.
I've never seen that cover ever.
Yeah, it's she was a character, the girl down here. Let's see, what was her name? Something Connie. But she was one of the female characters they had in this.
Well, it's like a Godzilla prototype, sort of.
If it was made today, she'd be a Connie man.
So true.
She'd just be a man.
Yeah,
There's
that's
my
the only
3D.
one I've got.
Whoa.
Well, no, I had that movie Star News you showed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had all that Dave Stevens stuff, or have it all. I have that one. That's
Do ya?
Yee.
Awesome. You could bring me.
Yeah. That's a great cover.
Jambo, did you pick up the new Sheena today?
Yeah, I was
I
gonna say.
didn't.
Joe is editing it.
Oh, really?
It was good.
Maybe if you got a few of them extra laying around the store, throw me one aside and I'll try to get up there and pick it up. Because nobody in my area is carrying
That's
Sheena.
a great cover there. They're all great. What am I talking about?
Look at that trunk.
Yeah, current Sheena and current Red Sonja are actually really good. Also, Giovanni's back in Red Sonja.
I'm not looking. I'm not lying.
How about you just give me the money and I'll buy it?
Sheena.
I'm missing one here. Let me see.
You need to do like a 2-hour episode like the Crypt Keeper of Castle Hills did this morning, where you show all your Sheena. He showed his entire Conan collection. It took him about an hour and 45
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to do that sometime because it
There's
would be
number
great
one.
to have it all in one place
Holy.
instead of different episodes of the Fossils show.
I'm just saying,
Every Sheen in the world.
Tarzan wasn't improved until he became a woman named Sheena.
He wants to have sheen it all.
One of my favorite covers here.
Yeah, they're all great.
A woman with a knife. That's scary.
Oh.
I'm not saying the Gil Kane word tonight. It's one of my very rare, I guess, genius.
Oh, she means go.
Yeah, Vangman was going to start bidding on Sheena's.
Oh,
I was gonna bid. I was just giving my address.
I'll do a couple more.
Monkey Lane.
Jackson asked, is the Sheena book still half length with another story?
Are they what? Half length?
Is she only in half the comic is with a different
No, I think they're all Sheena stories in these.
Okay.
There's like 3 stories, I believe.
Maybe he's thinking of Jungle Comics or something.
Yeah, Jumbo. I mean, there's other. It's like an anthology and stuff. There's other stories and everything in there.
Man.
Did I freeze?
Yeah, that's what I thought you meant, Jackson. No, it's full length.
Appreciate you having me on. I'll watch the rest of it. I just have a bunch of paperwork and stuff to do
that's
tonight.
cool. I appreciate the AOK you sent me. That was amazing.
Oh, that's okay, man. I appreciate you holding the fort down and keeping things going while Micah was on the mend. That was
he'll
really
be back
cool. Really nice
next
of you.
Wednesday night.
Awesome.
Take care. Let's get see you
See you
later.
guys.
All right, see you, Jim. I'll grab a Sheena for you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
I'm gonna grab Sheena for myself.
You're not old enough, son.
Okay, let's see
Hey!
about this.
Bye, Jambo. Bye,
how do I-
Jambo. Nadiano.
Oh, there you are, Mike.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
I met Mike at a Dallas Fantasy Fair convention back in the 90s. He did amazing comic books, and then he switched over and became an underground movie director. And so he's on tour showing one of his movies he did back in the 90s. You want to introduce yourself to the Fossils, Mike?
Well, I'm a fellow archaeologist myself. I was born in 63. That makes me 60 years old. Kind of subverted by, the psychosexual image of Raquel Welch posters and Bridget Bardot images out of Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. Back in the day that were like $1.50, who could afford that kind of thing, back in when you're 6 years old. But all this has led to devouring comic books when I was growing up on a gravel road in Mississippi. So I started drawing comic books for Dark Horse and Apple. I did Big Bad Blood of Dracula for Apple Comics, I think number 13 through 19. And then I did some work for Fantagraphics. And they had those imprint titles in the early 90s, Monster and Eros. And if you remember those.
Yeah.
The Eros comics were fairly pornographic. So I dipped my big toe into all that. And but then I stopped making comic books because I was very slow. I think you got to be at least upper middle class to sit around all day and draw comic books. I had to go to work. So anywho, I started making movies. So I don't know if you guys have heard of any of the the obscure things that I've come up. Let me see if I can put some light on things. I don't even know if this is interesting to you guys.
Mike, could you tilt your phone sideways to give the cinematic widescreen view?
Okay,
There you go.
sure. How's that?
Yeah, it's great. We're getting a tour of your. I've never seen your place.
Oh, well, here's just some those images I was talking about. I like comic books, rock and roll, and movies. I'm from Tupelo, Mississippi, where Elvis was born. You know, what I preach is Elvis just isn't the king of rock and roll. He's the king of American pop culture because he helped create. Well, he read comic books when he was a kid. Comic books like this one, Captain Marvel Jr., number 51. I wish I had more of these. Can you see it?
Bring it up some.
Oh, I'm trying to figure out how this works.
Yeah, it's hard to get used to it. Everything's backwards.
He read comics when he was a kid. When he was a teenager, he helped create rock and roll. And when he was an adult, he was in 33 movies. And comic books, rock and roll, and movies, to me, are the American Trinity. Don't have very much. I can't inundate you with things. This is signed by Kurtzman, my Two-Fisted Tales. Trying to figure out this backwards camera stuff. I got a Tales from the Crypt. So I've got a little bit of everything. I just read this John Stanley book, Little Lulu book that Fantagraphics put out. So freaking amazing. Over there's where I draw when I do draw. Pictures of my girlfriend who's irritating the shit out of me right now. Here is, let me get in here. So this, there's a company called Vinegar Syndrome that puts out low budget movies from the 80s, 90s. So this was my last Fantagraphics comic book. I did Cadavra, about a girl made from the pieces of dead movie stars, that ran 2 issues on Monster. And I did Kid Anarchy, which was sort of, back in the auto-bio comics craze of the alt comic stuff that everybody was doing. But this was the last Fantagraphics Eros comic I did, and the first low budget movie I did, Damselvis, Daughter of Helvis. And there's that. And then I did, by the way, and Damselvis cost $2,000 to make, and I made the money back in 2 hours at the door, charging suckers to get in a club to see it back in '94. Then I did Teenage Tupelo on Super 8 film and Something Weird. You guys heard of Something Weird Video?
Yes.
Of course.
So the very first movie that Something Weird Video put out, well, the first new movie they put out was this one, Teenage Tupelo on VHS back in '95. And that's when Kenneth and I really became good friends because I was coming to the Dallas Fantasy Fairs a lot. Just as an aside, I found Bat Pussy, which Something Weird put out. Found it in the back room of an old Memphis theater that was being renovated.
You're the one that discovered that movie?
Yep. That'll be on my headstone. That's why I'm getting cremated. Let's see. Let's see. Hold on a minute. So there's that. Oh, and well, I'll come back out here. Right now, I'm working on decoupaging punk rock images so that I can maybe make some money at a local festival. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out this. There's glare and stuff. Can you see the inside my cabinet here?
A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
These are the VHS, Blu-ray, and DVD copies of my films that have come out. I was in some of Hugh Gallagher's Gore trilogy movie, shot on video stuff, which led to Damselvis, which led to Teenage Tupelo. I made a Teenage Tupelo, by the way, was semi-autobio sexploitation comedy drama. Trying to figure out who my father was. In the movie, I say he's Elvis. Turned out he was somebody else. But and then I made The Sore Losers, which was about juvenile delinquents from outer space that come to Memphis to kill hippies. I don't know if you can see images of The Sore Losers. There's the damsel in this costume that my mom made. I've just been, since I got divorced and my wife moved out, I've been turning the dining room into a Gorilla Monster Films museum.
Oh, that's excellent.
if it were what, the divorce or the museum?
No, not that part.
If it were daylight, you guys could see so much more. I'm trying to turn on some lights here.
I was using a flashlight the other day in my house to highlight things.
Let me pick this baby up because Kenneth's in this. So I don't know. Have you guys heard of the Sore Losers? Have you heard of Teenage Tupelo? Have you heard of any of
Well,
these
the Sore
movies?
Losers is the one that Joe Riley was the special effects coordinator on, right?
Right.
Joe Riley, the creator of the Hypnotic Eye, some of you may know. And
So here,
yeah. Oh, wow.
so I haven't really had any communication with Fantagraphics books for 30 years. My last comic came out, Damsel, the Daughter of Helvis, came out in 93. So now here it is, 2023. And Fantagraphics has, it basically this drops in about a week or two. It's a $75, 340-page, 12 by 12 hardcover book on Teenage Tupelo. And Kenneth has an essay in here that I bugged the shit out of him to write. And so, Kenneth, you'll be getting one of these in the mail, and I expect a full review.
Oh, yeah, I'll show it on my channel.
On my desk on Monday morning. So
That new Blu-ray you have of Damselvis, I may want to buy a copy of that too.
oh, go right ahead. Well, you have to go through Saturn's Core / Vinegar Syndrome to get it. Guys,
Okay, you could send me a link on through text on how to do that. I'm sure.
I will. Guys, I apologize. I'm trying to work this damn angle here. Good Lord.
We probably need to be careful showing the inside because.
Oh, really?
I'm hosting a show for a graphic man, and he's a very religious man. So I don't know. I imagine there's going to be some inappropriate images within this book.
Well, for what it is, though, it's very appropriate. The book, though, I mean, this is like the table of contents, and
wow,
it's in here somewhere.
How long did you spend putting this together?
COVID helped me concentrate on lots of productivity for my obscure stuff, and I found a patron who was willing to pay for it. So during COVID, actually, I was able to reach out to, there's a band called Impala, the local band that did the soundtrack music. In fact, that's right here. You can see that. So I'll get it here in a minute. There we go. So this is an LP. All my LPs are being reissued now on Chapuda Records out of Portugal, and they all feature cat fights from the movies, because all my 90s films had cat fights.
Yeah, the actress on the cover, Delana, she used to work in a punk rock record store that I used to frequent, and used to sell my magazine, The Sophisticate, there.
Yeah. Well,
she was in several of your movies, I believe.
Delana was from Denton, and then she came to Memphis one weekend because she went to Lubbock expecting to find a Buddy Holly statue, and found that Lubbock didn't really give a shit about Buddy Holly that she could find, tourism-wise, and so they came to Memphis, and then I met her. I saw her at a club, and I was like bedazzled. I mean, I was already obviously into the Something Weird world and the low-budget movie world, and I wanted to make Cadavra, my Cadavra comic, the girl made from the pieces of dead movie stars. I wanted to make that into a movie, and I'd become friends with David F. Friedman, who worked with Herschel Gordon Lewis and had made his own stuff in Florida, all that. And he was from Alabama. And so he and I would meet at the Memphis airport. I mean, at that point, he was like 70-something years old. There's so many tangents and so many things to talk about. But when I saw Delana in the club, I didn't actually talk to her. Jack Oblivion from the garage band, The Oblivions, gave her my card, and she called me the next day from Sun Studio. And then from that, I said, would you be naked in a movie playing my mother? And she goes, sure. And there wasn't a lot of thought put into it. It's almost like it was like biblical, it's like meant to be it had been foretold. So then she was in the Sore Losers. She was in Shine On Sweet Starlet. That soundtrack album came out on Sympathy for the Record Industry. If anyone remembers Long Gone John.
Yeah.
I remember that label.
Yeah, they put out my soundtracks initially, and now Shaputa is putting them out. I put out the Blu-ray on Teenage Tupelo, which has got, Kenneth, it's got some stuff in there on you. It's got a lot of your, well, say a lot. I mean, I don't have a lot, but it covers the issue of Sophisticate that you covered Teenage Tupelo and your brilliant, intuitive, counterintuitive design skills that you put into play for that fanzine, which to me struck me as dangerous. Just to look at that issue that you sent me, I'm so proud to be in it. And the previous issue, you had put in a picture of Michelle Carr from the Velvet Hammer in Los Angeles, and it would be another 2 years before I even met Michelle. And then she wound up in Super Starlet AD and Shine On Sweet Starlet. So anyway, all that, the Blu-ray is out on Sore Losers, Damsel, this Teenage Tupelo. I'm hitting the road for Iowa and Missouri at the end of towards the end of October to show Teenage Tupelo. And I guess that's why the main reason Kenneth had me on tonight.
Well, you contacted me this morning. Are you going to be going by car or plane from place to place?
I think bicycle might be the most affordable. Maybe tricycle if things keep going like they're going. Now, I guess I should rent a car instead of driving a 20-year-old van on the road. What do y'all think?
I don't know how reliable the van is, but yeah, maybe.
Well, if I drive or rent a car or anything, I really need a driver. You know, that's why I have to maintain like a real positive attitude with my girlfriend right now. So at the very least, you know, if our relationship could last through Halloween, then I could at least travel across country and get back. She likes to drive. I don't like to drive. But,
Yeah.
I'm going to Iowa City. I'm going to Des Moines, and then I'm coming back through Kansas City, Missouri, and St. Louis to show Teen Tube from October 25th through I believe the 28th. But here in Memphis on October 13th, Friday the 13th of October, what could possibly go wrong? I'm going to show the movie here locally on the big screen. And then the next day on the 14th, we're going to have the book signing at this cool microbrewery here in town that's actually making a Teenage Tupelo beer for the event.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to be fantastic. And then that night, Impala will play, the band that did the music for the movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's just going to be, it might be a last hurrah because I think a lot of people involved in the movie are going to come to town. Delana, hopefully more than anyone, hopefully will be here. Because I haven't seen these people in such a long time, and everybody's hitting middle age and stuff, and all this zany shenanigans that we pulled off on celluloid. Everybody looks fantastic, and it looks like we were having our own punk rock moment in the sun as late as the mid '90s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hey, can you stick with us for the show and show some comics or curiosities? We kind of do like a show and tell where we go from person to person, or you got to run?
Sure. Yeah. Do you mind if I prop the phone down because I'm trying to pay?
Yeah, that would make sense.
All
Yeah,
right.
try to find a place where there's some light, and I'll go to some other people, and I'll come back to you, and by then maybe you can get a stack of comics, or you could show if you got any handy of your comics in case people have never seen your comics from the old days.
Yeah. I'll grab some stuff.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So I'm gonna click around to other people.
All right.
And
y'all.
Gotham City's in the wings trying to get in, but if you can stay with us, Kevin, as soon as someone has to go to bed, I'll get you in. All right, let's go to Paulo since he's in Portugal and it's like 3 a.m. for him. Let's get him.
Portugal?
Yeah. And it's 1:30, but still.
All right, time for me to nap.
So cars, no. No cars. So I'm gonna. I have a few books about pop culture and about the history of comics. This is one of my favorites, Myths for the Modern Age. So this is a compilation of a bunch of articles about the Wold Newton universe, who basically say that Tarzan and Fu Manchu are stepbrothers in other ridiculous family histories. This is based on an idea proposed by Philip Jose Farmer, that a meteorite that actually fell in England around 1840 gave a group of passersby mutations, and they are the parents of a bunch of characters from Victorian era pop culture.
Yeah, Doc Savage, His Apocalyptic Life is the book you need to seek out, guys.
Exactly.
Well, it might be a myth, but she's your myth.
Assembled, a collection of essays by the guys who created the AvengersAssemble.net website, including Van Allen Plexico. The Avengers Assemble was one of the first websites that I found when I first came online in 1997. So that was right around the time that Marvel had the Heroes Return, and finding other people who liked the Avengers when everybody was into the X-Men.
Wait, did you say you came out online in 1997? That explains your knowledge, your computer.
He gained sentience in 97.
Oh, that's what it is.
Of Comics and Men, the best book about comics that exists, and the fact that what makes it so good is that it's a history of American comics written by a French guy. He's an expert on American pop culture, but he's distanced enough to make a good analysis of the history of comic books from both the financial and the creative point of view, without turning this into some sort of fanboy fest. Because a lot of books about the history of comics are collections of characters in their first appearances.
We're learning today.
Hand of Fire, the comics art of Jack Kirby. I still haven't read this one, although it's sitting there on my shelf. And it talks about the way that Jack Kirby's art evolved, and it's even got some stuff inside. Let me check here. I think I went. Where's that thing? It's even got some Kirby art inside. I bought this around the time that we had the 100th anniversary exhibit here in Portugal. Because when Jack Kirby and Will Eisner would have turned 100, we don't have comic conventions in Portugal. We have art exhibits about comics, and we had two of them. One dedicated to Kirby. The guys from the Kirby Museum came, and we had one dedicated to Will Eisner. And Dennis Kitchen came, so I took the opportunity and bought this book from him. It's an interview that he gave, completely unedited, and Dennis Kitchen and the guy who interviewed him, John B. Cook, they talked for hours and hours and hours, and it's basically the best biography of Dennis Kitchen that you can find.
Oh.
This is not an actual history book, but it has a lot of history, and it is related to comics. The Portuguese edition of Cavalier in Clay by Michael Cabon. Of course, the history of comic being an inspiration for how the characters were portrayed throughout the book, and it's got a lot of history. If you're not familiar with the history of comics, if you read this book, you will have an idea of what actually went on behind the scenes. And finally, Variants, a short book about the history of comics in Portugal and Portuguese comics. It's not even an encyclopedia. It's just it's just as a collection of art. This is one of Portugal's earliest comic strips from 1915. And let's see if I can find here. One of the first alternative comics from 1936. This is from a guy who was a very well-known painter. And this guy, the first Portuguese artist to work abroad, he worked on a comic about Ragnar the Viking in France in the 1950s. Eduardo Teixeira Coelho.
To ever work abroad?
Yeah, because you couldn't really make money creating comics in Portugal, so he had to go to Spain and France to become a professional. The thing is, he was very his art style didn't evolve much. He got stuck on the classics. It was like a prototype Alex Raymond, and he stayed that way throughout the whole of his career. He didn't even like doing comics with speech bubbles. He liked doing comics the way they appeared in the Tarzan comic strip with narration and the dialogue on the bottom of the strip.
Little respect, Puppeteen.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm learning here. Hello.
Okay. Well, if you need Gotham to get in, I suppose I can.
I hate doing that. I swear that Micah has the free plan, but he can get on more than 6 people at a time. Maybe there's some in between plan I don't know about. But it's only letting me have 6 people. Maybe they're punishing me for having paid the $25 at one time and then stopping. That's probably what's going on.
Hey, Ken.
Oh well, if you got to go, that's fine. But yeah, because Kevin is wanting to get in.
All right. See you next week.
All right. See you.
See you, Paulo.
Hey, making me feel terrible. It's like Sophie's Choice. You know, who am I going to have to let the Gestapo take?
Kenneth, I'll show some stuff, and then I'll step away and let somebody.
Oh no, we got. Unless you need to go, we've got. Now I don't have anyone waiting. I was trying to get Kevin from Gotham City Comics. You won't believe his stories in Mesa, Arizona, but let me go to Puppeteen Froggy. Then I'll go to Kevin at Gotham City Comics. Then I guess I'll take a turn, and then and Eric Breen he likes to go last, or maybe other people like to put him. I don't know exactly, but it's a tradition. Anyway, let's go to Puppeteen. What do you got to show? It might be hard for you to hold up comics. Maybe. I
did actually get a couple books that I have. Give me a second to grab them because I can't hold up a comic. Maybe.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
No, it's okay. Put it on the.
Talk about you like you're handicapped or something.
On the spot, I work best. There we go. Let's see. Here's a big one. Here's a small one. And I'm not talking about my mother. How about yes. A good old-fashioned ROM. And I have one more if I can just find where I said it.
Everybody's having to write stuff tonight.
You do realize you turned your camera off, right?
I didn't want to show the big body that's moving around right now.
Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
These performance artists get weirder every day.
Yeah.
I'm just as weird as I was yesterday, I swear. All right. Camera is coming on. Seat in position. All righty. Let's go ahead and show. What am I going to show? Let's start off with, I picked this up recently. It's issue 2 of a Marvel Zorro. I don't know if you can see it in the light.
Yeah.
There we go. I got this. I'm going to use this as a chance to show off my ROM, issue number 1. Set this on
I got
down.
a copy of that coming in the mail tomorrow. I bought it when it came out, and then I have another copy, but I won a copy from Captain Strangelove a couple weeks ago. So,
Well, it's
I have 3 copies.
It's a Marvel Tales, but this is I think we've done this one on the channel before, haven't we? Yes, Gabi's Last Stand. Yes. And the last couple I'm going to show. One is an issue I picked up of a little thing called Doctor Who. Brain, what do you like to call it?
Doctor Who cares. Doctor Who gives a bleep.
Well, I'm gonna. This finger just slipped up for you, so there you go.
Doctor what?
And lastly is actually just a collection of Doctor Who little comic strips. Yes, and being a puppet and carrying books is difficult. But yeah, no, that's good. That's pretty much all I've got to show right now.
All right. Well, let's see what Froggy has got to show this evening.
Froggy, wake up.
I don't have anything.
Oh, okay. Well, you can just hang out. We don't have anyone waiting to come in.
Yeah.
Let's see what's going on in Mesa, Arizona at Gotham City Comics. You awake? Kevin, are you there? He might be in the restroom, little boy's room.
Hold on. Are you guys there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're here. We can hear you fine.
I don't really have much ready, but I could show you a few things that just came in.
Yeah. Oh, boy. That came out today, or is that coming out next week?
Next week.
Yeah. Put one of those in my pile.
All right.
How many did you get of that?
5 or something. I got this. This is a big Mego. 14-inch Mego.
I had a big Mego from a few years ago, but it had a cloth body. This is a new Mego.
He has cloth.
Oh, that must be the one I've got. I've got that down in the basement. It looks better in your video than it does in real life to me. Yeah, that came out about 3. I think the head is not as good as that. I think they replaced the head. I'll have to look at it. Because what I got back when I still lived in Texas. I think they improved it.
I think I showed you this already.
That's pretty good.
There's a regular size Mego.
Oh yeah, okay. Then you got the cape fixed on him, right?
Yeah, I just lay it on him.
Okay.
I just drape it over him.
I guess it's more than a feeling.
Yeah, I just drape it over him. There's Frankenstein.
Oh yeah.
Hey, you still made the right choice, Jackson.
Why did the last issue explode? It had some artists that people liked or something?
No, it was just it's probably the collector's market.
Well, I remember it was reprints from British comics, right? So it looked very different from a typical Marvel.
We'll make some posters of this so we don't have to cut them out.
Yeah?
It's got newsprint paper.
Well, that's good. But so was the one that came out in the 70s.
Colors look real good on this.
Yeah, it'll be nice to compare the two. Yeah, it looks good. Yeah, definitely put one of those in my pile, man. And do a quick show your store a little bit for Mike. If Mike's at the camera, let's see if he's there.
I missed the whole front of
He's looking for
the
books.
episode.
Oh, he's coming back. I want Mike McCarthy to see your store, just kind of show the monster corner and stuff.
Wow.
Because he's someone that'll appreciate your store. This is Mike. This is Gotham City Comics in Mesa, Arizona. Maybe you should show your movie there sometime.
Oh yeah, is there a venue?
Do you have like a theater that shows like a repertory type theater that shows art films or something? There in
There used to
Mesa?
be one. There used to be one close, but it closed down.
Mm.
We don't really have. The closest thing is like we used to have an Alamo Draft House. They call it something else now because they closed the Alamo.
Yeah.
Yeah. They Mike, what
But
was
they
the
kept
movie
it,
that premiered at that old theater in Dallas that we all went to? Was it the Major Theater?
Yes, the Major. I showed Teenage Tupelo at the Major.
Right. And that's probably when you met Joe Riley. The Major Theater was an old theater that had turned into a dirty movie house, and someone decided we'll fix up the theater, and they pulled the seats out, and hypodermics fell out from inside the seats, and they restored it somewhat, and then but the problem is the neighborhood around it was still the same neighborhood than when it didn't last long, but luckily we were able to show. That's the only time I've been inside that theater.
Yeah.
Of course, now that theater is 11 hours away from me.
Well, that's all the stuff that I love, especially the X-ray specs and the Aurora kits. I'm doing sculpture now. If you Google the Johnny Cash sculpture in Memphis, you'll see the 7-foot bronze that I did of Johnny Cash. And I did an interview last week, and they were asking me about my influences, and I said Aurora model hobby kits, among other things, because those were sculptural items that little kids could have and build and have a sense of 3 dimensions and, come out of it with some sort of appreciation for other things, like maybe the Renaissance or whatever.
See, you look at things exactly like I do. I was saying the other day, I never wanted this just to be a comic book channel. I want it to be like rock and roll culture. And to me, comic books are part of rock and roll culture. And, people that collect comic books slabbed in plastic, but they don't have any records or any other interest, but just collecting key issues slabbed in plastic. To me, I don't have much use for people like that because if you don't appreciate monsters, comic books, and the other thing is people buy these omnibus giant books that are a bit thicker than a family Bible, but they don't have the ads in them. And the ads are, to me, 50% of what made comics fun,
Right.
Like the moon monster there. And I was just thinking about you, Mike.
Wait.
I think yesterday when I was zooming in on a comic ad and it showed the patch, "Help, I need lovin'," and in your comic book and in your movie, Damselvis, doesn't she have a patch, one of those patches from the early 70s?
Yeah, and those patches mean absolutely nothing to her character or anything. They're just there as a random pop culture appreciation, but it's not even pop culture in the sense of Andy Warhol. It's more like some crazy mid-70s, what was the name of that T-shirt shop in the mid-70s that advertised?
Hal Roach?
Yeah, Roach. And, if you look at pictures of the Ramones, like Johnny Ramone wearing a Popeye shirt, he's wearing a Hal Roach shirt.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically the way I always put it. It's all the stuff that your parents threw away is the stuff that is what my channel is about.
Oh my God. There's this guy I know somewhere. I'm not going to say where. He told me that he would entertain the notion of selling me every issue of Famous Monsters of Filmland that he has, which is from number 1 through, I think, late 70s.
Oh, wow.
And I told him, yes, even if I had to borrow money or I would figure out some payment plan or something. I don't even know what that would be worth. Of course, it depends on the condition.
But you have the added advantage that you could do artwork and maybe he would trade and you could, trade partly for that, because your artwork must sell for. Your artwork's amazing.
You have the bomb from the Batman '66 movie?
Supposed to be one of 7 that was on set.
Oh wow!
Wow, that's still hell yeah.
So do you ever run around the store?
Some Hive videos, Mike.
Yes, I directed Abracadabra. And another one, actually, my friend co-directed it with me. Who said that?
Gore Vidal. It's not the real Gore Vidal. I don't think he's alive. But
yeah, I worked with the Hives. They had like 6 hours to spare, and I'm like, well, let's do 2 videos then. And but they didn't. Oh, there's Vampy. I got mine signed by 40, and then I had to laminate it because the humidity in my attic was destroying it. The Hives spent 6 hours running around in their suits, and I had made a short movie called Elvis Meets the Beatles back in 2000, and I had a Rickenbacker guitar that looked cool. So they just used that Rickenbacker. The whole band used one guitar during the entire video. And speaking of hypodermic needles and things like that, I had a bag of like my mom's medicine and some things that I don't know how needles got, I guess because I don't know how I got them in there. Anyway, they all got dumped out on Pele's face, and I was realizing this as all this was hitting his face. I was like, oh God, I hope he doesn't get injured by something. You see the video, it makes more sense. Wow, that's great. My son just saw Creepshow the other day and wanted to talk about it, and so we chatted about it. I've got a Creepshow poster somewhere around the house, but he obviously has grown up on all this stuff in the house, and
yeah,
he probably thought of Creepshow as Tales from the Crypt, which I guess
has he developed a love for it, or is it?
He's 19. He started to college last week as a freshman, and he told me 6 months ago that he wanted to make movies, and I just kind of slapped my head because I was like, I was kind of depending on you kids as a retirement plan, but now
Oh no,
if you're going to make movies, you're going to, I'd like, did growing up around the squalor not convince you that maybe that's not a great idea? But he made a short film called Super Thrift, and I'm showing it before Teenage Tupelo in Memphis in October.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And my daughter just got back from South Korea where she was teaching English, and she's trying to get a job here. But my kids don't, maybe they got so used to seeing all my crazy stuff that I don't know. It's not like my daughter put out an album back when she was 16, Hannah Starr and the Teenagers. But other than that, she's had no interest in drawing or, making movies or.
Is that album, can you hear it on YouTube? Is it?
Probably because it came out on Archer Music. So, yeah, it's HANNA, like Hanna-Barbera, Hannah Starr, and the Teenagers.
Wow.
And it's not like, what you would think. It's very, she was into reading. She was writing songs about things she hadn't even experienced as a person, So, like, what was popular for teenagers to be watching 10 years ago?
Man,
of course, my son listens to rap music all the time, and most of rap music's lyrics now, because he forces me to listen to this stuff, is a lot about anime and manga.
Really?
Yes, it's loaded with references of Naruto and Dragon Slayer. A lot of these things that and what's the Titans anime?
Attack on Titan.
Yes, Attack on Titan, which I think at some points is so garish and grotesque, but the kids just see it as a metaphor for the world's larger problems. But to me, it's so visceral. Whereas this stuff that we're looking at right here, it has such a softer edge and cartoony or expressionism that's born out of, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s.
Yeah.
And it's almost a safeguard against growing up instead of a revelation of what happens after you grow up.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I wish I'd had money when I was a kid to have bought half of this stuff.
Yeah, most of this stuff didn't come out when we were kids, though. It's come out
Well,
recently.
true. That's true. Well, and in Tupelo, Mississippi, I would go in. My parents would take me into the J.C. Penney's mall, and in the Super D, I could get my Warren magazines, the Spirit Eisner stuff. Almost intimidated me at first. I was like 9 years old, and I didn't know if it was appropriate for me to read it. And then I saw some kids reading Spirit #1 on the school bus. And I'm like, okay, screw that. I'm going to start reading this.
I had the same feeling because the Spirit came out from Warren, and I thought, well, maybe is this okay? It's completely kid friendly, but you kind of keep expecting something horrible to be on the next page just because it's from the Warren Company. But
yeah. Well, you got the Captain Company ads in the back regardless.
Right.
But yeah, I'd go to Super D's and get my Vampirella, my Spirit, my Famous Monsters. I remember buying Famous Monsters #100 there. And then I would go to Woolco to get my Aurora model hobby kits.
Guys, it's 6. I got to close the doors right now, but I'll come back.
Well, okay. Let me switch to Eric, and then we'll come back around to everybody. Yeah, and Mike will be coming right back to you. Let's see what Eric's got.
I found a video of Hannah Starr and the Teenagers on YouTube, so
awesome.
I'll be checking that out after the show. And there was a video apparently, but it's just there's no video and couldn't turn the sound on, so anywho. I thought I'd show what I picked up today. 3rd issue of Barnstormers. 3rd and final issue. Pretty good stuff.
I've never heard of it.
It's Scott Snyder, who I'm not a huge fan of, but I like this. It's set in the barnstorming era. It's a guy basically rescues a girl from a marriage she doesn't want to be in, and it does involve barnstorming, and the husband hires a Pinkerton to bring her back and take care of him, and hijinks ensue. 3rd issue of Heat Seekers. I've searched hither and yon for 3 issues and can't find a straight person. Justice Society of America #6. Sabrina Annual. Had the reprint of the very first Sabrina and 2 other stories from the early 70s, and that's what made it worth it.
Huh.
And then the first issue of Sheena. I can't understand why Jambo wants this.
Why have they started it over?
The guy that owns the rights to it is doing it this time, and they all start over. They just do like 5-6 issue miniseries, but Joe Corallo is editing this. That's why I picked it up.
Oh, okay.
Not the cover at all.
What's that?
Not the cover at all.
That's pretty easy to find and for free if that's all I wanted.
Is the interior art any good?
Actually, it's not bad. It's in fact, I'd say it's better than most comics produced today.
That doesn't say much.
Hey, Jackson, you want to see something else I picked up? Puppeting, can I borrow that finger again?
I don't know.
Well, just imagine it,
I think I've got it right here. I think, this one right here. This one.
Thank you.
Where does this come from? What is this?
Is that because of talking about artwork being bad in comics?
Wow, if your finger lasts more than 4 hours. Scout #1.
#1.
Seduction of the Innocent #6.
#6.
Soldiers of Freedom #1. Yes, I'm still on my 80s indie kick. Survivors #1. There's a little something nice and kid friendly. Tales of Terror. And I guess the Eclipse crossover event, Total Eclipse, finally got around to reading that 35 years after it was done.
Of my heart?
Yes, Bonnie. There's number 3.
Turn around.
Number 4.
Turn around.
What is this comic about?
It's basically this character whose name I've forgotten, who's been around for thousands and thousands of years, wants to die, but in order to die, he has to take the universe with him. So he involves Misery, who is a big bad villain in the Airboy series, but then something happens along the way, and the villain turns good, and then they end up fighting Misery and his henchmen. So, which was an interesting twist. But it uses all the Eclipse characters from everybody from Miracle Man to the little cartoon Bean from Tales from the Bean World. And they managed to get them all in, which is, I mean, it wasn't Crisis on Infinite Earths impressive, but it wasn't bad. Trouble with Girls. Love that series. All he wants is a nice, quiet evening in Dullsville with a good book, but he keeps getting beset by international intrigue and beautiful women.
Michael, Seduction of the Innocent reprints 50s stories.
Them dames.
That's nice.
real good.
So that's a tough place for Lester girls to be. More family-friendly fare.
Oh yeah,
That was a good comic.
It was.
Richard Corbin cover.
Number 2.
Yeah, those were good days. That's the late 80s, right?
Early 80s, because Pacific
Was it? Yeah,
Pacific
I bought all
folded
those.
in, I think, 83 or 4.
Okay, yeah.
And I guess their stuff ended up at first, along with the stuff that Capitol when they went out of business.
That's
I
one I
never-
don't think I have.
Yeah, I never seen that.
Here's number 5. Number 6.
All the covers have different feels.
Yeah.
Give you something to think about next time you're going off to see Granny. And this story is actually in the book, and it's kind of clever. But then it's pretty much all more. Here's number 8.
Number 8.
Green is good.
And I'm not sure what happened to number 9, but here's number 10.
That almost looks like Will Stout or something. It almost looks like a Commies from Mars cover.
Yeah.
Frank Frazetta romance stories.
I got that one.
Okay.
Vanity.
Yeah.
Well, she's got some reason to be.
And finally, the first comic special, Whisper.
I'm never gonna dance again. Is it Careless?
I can't even. I have no one to blame but myself. By the way, Parker Girls number 10 came out today. I would have shown that, but somehow managed to miss number 9. So
What is that? A Spider-Man thing?
No, it's Terry Moore, the guy that did Strangers in Paradise, and all the subsequent series he's done have involved characters from the Strangers in Paradise universe.
Yeah, Parker Girls is when Aunt May hooks up with Uncle Ben back in her teenage years.
Now that was Trouble. That was published in the early 2000s.
But it's also told with Dr. Octopus.
Those gams.
Those cams.
So we're practicing for later tonight. Ken.
Oh,
So get this
okay.
mic
You're doing
ready.
that as soon as we sign off here?
You're not backing out, are you?
Oh, am I supposed to?
Yeah,
Am I
that was the whole
supposed to do that?
purpose of these.
Oh,
That's the whole
is
purpose of
Let me
suffering these
share it with my
fools
wife.
tonight.
I forgot.
oh,
How
I,
did it go?
I didn't. Okay, I didn't know he was in there. I didn't cast a role for him.
Well, we
Oh,
always
no, that's
make
all right.
room.
Well, that's all right. Maybe I can do it next week because I got to work in the morning and I didn't clear it with my wife. She's not feeling good. But I thought I'd show some books I was thinking of sending off to CGC.
I knew that was
So
coming.
this is they would glue this 3 assorted comics only 15 cents. So they would take 3 comics. They got the money back for the comics, so they're making extra money. So the American way. Look at this rogues gallery here. Let me get the light down a little better. This would be a lot better if Micah was doing the show. Trust me.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's the new trend to not have covers on your comics. We're going to start that trend today. Anyway, you can still read it.
Comics rot quicker without covers.
Yeah, I'm just joking. I just have a stack of comics without covers, so I thought I'd show them.
You ever show covers without comics?
Huh?
You got any covers without comics?
A few, yeah.
Yeah.
I put them in frames. I mean, I like the Raccoon Kids. Oh, there we go. The light's better there. What would happen is I'd get. They used to have stacks of comics this tall, shrink wrapped, called Wounded Wonders, and they'd sell you a brick of comics for like $10 at Lone Star Comics in Arlington, Texas, and you never could tell. You might have Golden Age comics in there, but they were all in a condition where they couldn't sell them. But here's El Asombroso Hombre Araña. This is not one of the. This is just the American Spider-Man. It's not one of the ones that went off on a divergent timeline because they were stupid enough to kill Gwen Stacy in the United States. I still think that was a mistake. But so the Mexican company that was reprinting the Spider-Man comics said, "Hey, do you mind if we just make our own comics? Because our readers like Gwen Stacy, so they kept Gwen Stacy alive in the Mexican comics, and they made their own stories. I wish they would reprint those and translate them into English for the American audience."
Especially with they gave Gwen quite a shape when
There are entire videos devoted to that.
Sometimes there's I know, yeah. Sometimes you get lucky and they don't just cut out the title to get credit from. They go like 4 pages in. That makes the comic even more valuable. CGC, like, they don't consider that a flaw. Here's a Casper without a cover.
So, Ken, do you get a discount from CGC if they cut out the first 4 pages because it's less work for them to do?
Yeah, really. You should. We need to get a letter writing campaign together. This one's some kid did an art project on the cover. Why is my light so crappy tonight? Let's get closer to the. Almost knocked my computer on the floor. The 7 gigantic dinosaurs. You would never get that ad in an omnibus, but of course there is no little dot omnibus. This is where's my magnifying glass? This must be a Harvey. Is this a Harvey Dick Tracy? Because it's square bound. Let's see what the ads show. Yeah, it is, because there's Casper with school bus safety. Anyway, you don't want to look at this shit, so let me see. I'm just trying to take the piss out of people that like to slab their comics, giving them heart failure. Let's see. So I guess we're back around to Mike. Let me go to him. He's pulled some comics, I think.
All right, I'm going to show you. You know, I didn't know I was going to be on tonight. I just sent you a text about needing your address to send you the Teenage Tupelo.
Oh
book.
yeah, but I just happened to be doing a show tonight, so I said, "Hey, come on."
Well, that's cool, and I appreciate it. I set some stuff out that I can bore you with. Can you hold on 1 second? I'll grab it.
Oh yeah. Fine. We'll just chat amongst ourselves. So anyway, let's see what
I have to
people
go. I have to go soon.
Huh? Oh,
I have
what?
to go soon. I have to leave soon. So.
Oh, okay. Well, you can leave. You're showing. Oh, let's see what you got there while we're waiting for
Oh,
him to come
listen.
back.
Oh, somebody called earlier today and wanted famous monsters in the number 20s and 30s.
Oh wow.
I don't know if he watches maybe he watches your show. I don't know.
Must have been. Well, maybe not. Those are ones. Oh yeah. Did you put a copy of that latest one in my pile, Monster Bash?
Yeah, I got one for you.
You did. Okay.
Oh, those are beautiful.
Yeah, that one there. My friend Tom owned that painting. He sold it. He might have sold it to the Metallica guy. That's very possible.
Yeah.
But the original painting was reversed. They that's a mirror image of the original Go-Go's painting. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I think I have all those famous. I already looked through all those famous monsters, and I have all those.
If Jambo's watching, I got this for him.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It's not real, but it's.
Is it a reprint?
Yeah, they've done some facsimiles lately. Roy Thomas's PS art books.
You know, I don't know what you guys felt about the Shazam movies that have come out, but I'm ready for a Mary Marvel movie. She was the only really interesting thing in the whole movie to me, and she looked gorgeous.
Yeah, I don't think. I don't remember. What did they? They didn't call her Mary Marvel, did they? What do they call her? Mary Shazam?
No, they can get away with calling her Mary Marvel, I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they.
I can't remember. I only saw the first one. I haven't seen the second Shazam movie.
Yeah.
I didn't mind the first one. I mean, it was a little silly, but
they put more attention on Captain Marvel Jr., and I think it was all because of the Baz Luhrmann Elvis movie going into that deep dive of Captain Marvel Jr. worship that blew my mind to see that on $1 million movie on screen.
Yeah. What did you think of that movie?
The Elvis movie?
Yeah, I was thinking about you when I was watching that movie, you know, how you were feeling about it.
I saw it 3 times. I loved it because you have to go to a movie knowing that you're not going to see what necessarily appeals to your obscure vision of what something is based on, 18 books you've read or whatever, or music you listen to. And
right.
So, but I thought Baz Luhrmann magnified certain moments that I thought deserved to be dramatized. And the thing at the end was the poetry at the end about life without Elvis. I thought was amazing.
Yeah, my wife and I had fun at the movie. Yeah, we liked it.
Somewhere in Graceland in the archives there are copies of Captain Marvel Jr. somewhere because my friend George worked for a shelving company and they were hired to go and design shelving for Graceland. And this is back 30 years ago. And he said that he laid eyes on Elvis's Captain Marvel Jr. comic or comics. I'm not sure what. And that blew me away.
Wow.
That wouldn't be like, promoted, exploited.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Let's see what Mike's pulled.
I'll see you guys later.
See you later. Take care. Have a nice evening.
Yeah, you too.
So, before I do all this, I feel like I don't. Can you guys tell me, like, real quick, go around the table and tell me who you are and where you're at?
Oh yeah. Let's. Well, you know who I am. I'm at the Hotel Orloff. Puppetine, where are you located in? What state?
Florida.
Okay.
Indeed. It's very hot. I'm melting.
Oh, no.
And Eric, he works at a comic store and a record store in Kentucky. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. I live in northern Kentucky, which it's easier to say it's about 5 minutes from Cincinnati, Ohio.
How close is it to Louisville?
About 80, 90 miles.
Do you know a guy named Greg Smalley in Louisville who talks about exploitation movies?
I don't get down there often, even though our other store is down there, and two of my nieces and my nephew live in Louisville. But
Okay.
I never get down there.
I may be showing Teenage Tupelo in Louisville. I don't know. I'm hearing a lot about Louisville lately.
Most of it's really nice.
Yeah. Huh.
What is that part that that Eric doesn't go to?
Well, there's parts of every major city that are not really good places to be.
And that's where I'll be showing Teenage Tupelo. Tombstone. Okay.
What theater are you showing it in Des Moines?
I want to say the Stray Cat Theater.
The Stray Cat? Seriously, it's called the Stray Cat Theater?
Well, Stray Cat Cinema is putting on
Okay.
the show, but I think so.
Huh.
I'm going to provide you with this information, and if anybody gives a crap, they can get in touch with you, Kenneth.
Well, I'd like to see that, but
Ah,
the radiator on my
Origins.
car is shot.
I bought that the day it came out.
Huh?
Son of Origins.
Oh, I just wanted to bring
Oh, I
Kevin
didn't
because
see it.
I hadn't done that yet.
I think when Kirby saw that, he said, "Son of a bitch."
Yeah. Yeah, that really was probably the peak of him taking full credit for things, unfortunately.
That came out at the same time as the Marvel calendars.
And Froggy, you seem to be in a cemetery.
Yeah, I found the other fossils finally.
That's why they're not here.
Well, you know,
Oh, that's why.
Charlton 66 is getting ready for a convention, and so he's I don't remember, Boston or something like that.
It's in Baltimore. By the way, Steve, if you're watching, Joe is going to be there at the Mad Cave booth Saturday from 1 to 2. If you want to stop by and say hello.
And Meyer Greenblatt said he was going to be on, but something must have happened, and I don't know. If anyone else wants to come on, I'll put the link if there's anyone, because we can fit one more person on right now. But let's see what Mike's got to show.
Oh my God. Okay. I just took a bite of peanut butter.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm good. I'm good. All right. I have the stove, the oven, hood light on here, so maybe this will work.
Don't burn down your house.
Are your comics on the stovetop?
Stovetop stuffing. So since I kind of had to come up with something conceptual or something I could actually talk about, I don't really buy new things anymore. Like I hate new things. All my favorite rock stars are dead. I mean, but I try to emulate those things when I kind of create my new work. But I'm going to show you some stuff that I loved when I was a kid, or I finally got my hands on, or I bought this when I was like 8 years old. You guys ever get this?
I've never seen that.
I've neither.
Oh yeah, it's a paperback. Remember when you would go into a department store in the early 70s, and while your parents were shopping, you could, and it wouldn't have to be a bookstore, just a department store would have a huge paperback section.
Right.
And
I always look for Mad, for
Yeah.
Dennis the Menace.
Well, this was there, and this book is crazy because Lee Mendelson goes into the history. See, talk about coverless books. There it goes.
Oh,
But the history of comic strips is in this book, like Popeye and all Cats and Jammer Kids, all that stuff. So that led to me getting Les Daniels' comics, A History of Comic Books in America.
that's
The
one of my
Mad
favorite books.
That Mad Peck cover blew my mind. It still does, because I still can't wrap my head around what Mad Peck was. So Mad Peck.
Do you have the Mad Peck book that was put out?
I tell me more about it.
Let me see if I can grab it. But the Mad Peck was just this underground artist that I guess he designed concert flyers but
Well, there you
there's a
go.
whole book collecting of stuff that I got back in the 80s. I'll show it to you. I'll go in the other room, but keep showing your stuff. I can hear you.
All right. So, yeah, the Mad Peck, I didn't know it was one guy. I thought Mad Peck was doing with comics what Hypnosis was doing with album cover art, maybe, or something like that, as I found out later in life. Your previous guest from Portugal, who was talking about the Philip Jose Farmer stuff, inspired me to grab these because, again, these were things I saw in the back of Famous Monsters that I would never be able to find or afford or locate until decades later with the Bern Hogarth cover. But this is the whole Wold Newton, archaeology that Philip Jose Farmer creates to tie all the, relates Scarlet Pimpernel to Tarzan and stuff. And then here's a different cover of it.
True story. That is Eric Breen when we met.
What's that?
That's Eric Breen when we met. He was a boy.
That's not a boy, and that ain't no little girl. Oh, woo, hi.
I'm not a big Boris fan. I like the Bern Hogarth cover better.
I hear you. I like Natasha.
And then speaking of Philip Jose Farmer's mania with tying all the pulp heroes together, which I thought was, pretty damn brilliant, and Playboy Press, I guess, did too. This is a Bantam book, though. You guys have probably seen this. You probably own your own copies. But Philip Jose Farmer, ties together 181 Doc Savage novels out of order so that they make sense to him. You guys ever see this Lupoff book on Edgar Rice Burroughs?
No, I can't say that I have. Wow.
And then Wally Wood took that Frazetta pose, or vice versa, from Frank Frazetta, and put it in one of his Tarzan appreciations. I would see this book in Famous Monsters advertised forever, and Lupoff, who just wrote the book that I showed you, the ERB book. He also, I think, had a hand in this with Don Thompson, all in color for a dime. Another history of comics. Took me forever to get that. And then this, Philip Jose Farmer's porno novel with Tarzan and Doc Savage and Pat Savage, and Playboy Press put out back in 68 or 69. I'm just guessing there. You guys familiar with that?
Mm-mm.
A Feast Unknown. It's the Tarzan Doc Savage porno novel from Philip Jose Farmer. My mom would take me to this restaurant out in Baldwin, Mississippi, which was about 20 miles outside of Tupelo. And the woman that owned the restaurant, Christine Bingram, she made the mistake one day of giving me a comic book. And she gave me this one. And not only is this, it will always be near and dear to me because it's my first comic. It just happens to be a Lee Kirby, of course. It's number 88. And it has the Mole Man in it, which, of course, who first appeared in number 1. So, in a way, 88 is like having number 1, except, 7 years later or something.
Mike?
Yeah.
If you would give us 1 or 2 seconds to indulge ourselves, Puppetine.
I, the Mole Man, appreciate this book.
And I, the other Mole Man, do too.
Thank you. We now resume our regular scheduled programming.
That should have been my puppet. I should have had a Mole Man puppet handy. But the thing I love about this cover the most upon reflection is sometimes maybe when Kirby was running out of time, he just wouldn't put a background in at all. So as a 6-year-old kid, 7-year-old kid, I couldn't understand how anybody could draw this. And maybe subconsciously, I couldn't understand why there was no background in the whole thing, because other comic books had backgrounds in them. So who's saying that about the logo title, whatever? Text just popped up.
I don't know, but
this one
is Vince
the words that appear most. Oh, about a feast unknown. Doubled them, all right. But in a way, this looks like a children's book cover because you have a white background that pushes the logo of the title right in your face. There's no multiple colors going on to distort your view of what it is or anything. So it just drives the logo and the name of the group home, to in your brain. So
Almost like a
anyway, after
coloring
this,
book.
huh?
Almost like a coloring book.
Almost like a coloring
Let me
book,
get myself
and
the screen for 1 second. This is the
Yeah.
book. I can't find it right now, but it looks like
Oh.
this: a 20-year retrospective by the Mad Peck.
Okay,
And
I have seen.
he just takes art he finds, and he's amazing.
Who'd you say?
This book is see, like, notice that it's Papa Ooh Mau Mau is the sound that the motorcycle's making. This is for sale. Someone's selling it for $65 on Amazon. I bet
Isn't
you
that
can find one
ridiculous
cheaper.
stuff?
Maybe not, but it's here somewhere. I don't know exactly where.
I've seen it. I've seen that book, and maybe because it was so outrageously priced, I forgot that I ever had anything to do with it or seen it.
Oh, okay. Well, I bought it when it came out because I remember that guy's name from that Les Daniels book.
Yeah, and the Mad Peck thing was also scary to me as an 8 or 9-year-old, and I couldn't believe that my parents actually got it for me because sometimes I just thought I'm self-censoring myself. Like when Weird Worlds came out, and I do an essay in my Teenage Tupelo book on Weird Worlds and Secret Origins being my favorite DC comics in the early 70s because it was turning me on to a whole world of 30s, 40s pulp heroes, DC stuff, and of course the ERB adaptations that I didn't know anything about. But Diane the Beautiful, that was in Pellucidar, as part of the Weird Worlds backup story that who drew that? Anyway, she was just beautiful, but I self-censored myself from buying the book because I was like, my God, there's this girl in a rabbit fur bikini. It's like the Raquel Welch poster that I can't afford to buy in Captain Company. I'm just never going to be able to afford any scantily clad women periodicals, And then my mom went to the laundromat one day and she brought home Weird Worlds #2 for me, which had Diane the Beautiful all over it with the Mayhars and all this stuff. And so I was like, okay, if my mom's buying it for me, it must be all right. And speaking of my mom, this is the first Hulk that I believe I ever purchased with my mom's money, with my own at the comic book stand.
Yeah.
Issue 137. So this is the Roy Thomas, Herb Trimp era. I had been given a bunch of Hulks so when after Christine Bingham gave me that Fantastic Four, I kept bugging her over and over again until finally her son, who was going in medical school to avoid Vietnam, he just gave me all of his comic books, which were 80% 60s Marvel. And who does that for a kid anymore? I'm not even sure I've been able to be that unselfish to do that, just to turn over my collection to some little kid, but that's what he did for me, and it warped me forever. This is the actual Marvel Team Up #1. I remember this came out around Christmas, and I remember my mom Christmas shopping on Christmas Eve while I was in the back seat reading this amazing concept.
Hey, Brain, did you hear that? Give your comics to little kids.
There you
Yeah,
go.
my address.
It's not frogs.
This is-
Pixel's pretty young.
And of course, these are some of the things that kid, I say kid, man, George Bingham, going off into the college to become a doctor. I never knew what happened to him. I haven't spoken to him. I can't find him on Facebook. He could be passed away for all I know. But that guy warped me forever.
When Captain America throws his
So there's that.
Raker tells me that all the time.
I remember buying this when my mom had to go to the eye doctor in Pontotoc, Mississippi, which is where Gladys Presley was born. Didn't know that at the time. But I remember waiting in the waiting room and reading this Barry Smith artwork in this #100. speaking of depictions of females in places you wouldn't normally expect, this was an issue. This is the only issue of Iron Man I think I ever bought as a kid. I just never was into Iron Man, but there was a beautiful woman in this issue that was drawn in darkness and half light, who was Tony Stark's girlfriend. I can't remember. But what's that?
That was a long time ago. He didn't mean it, Maranya. He actually loves Iron Man.
Uh-oh. Well, when I was a little kid, I thought Iron Man was a robot. Sort of like when I first saw Star Wars, I thought the stormtroopers were robots until, of course, Mark Hamill takes off the helmet. So I was very much naive about things, and I was a visualist, not so much into the writing, although these things taught me to read very well. Basil Go-Go's, no, but how about Go-Go?
Oh, man. I tried to order some of those the other night. The place didn't have any of them.
Well, this is the only one I have. The guy that gave it to me, all that. But do you guys listen to a podcast called Comics for Breakfast?
I think I've heard of it, but I don't think I've heard it.
And he does another one. His name's Mink. He's in.
Oh yeah, having a drink with Mink. Yeah, okay, I thought that's what you meant.
Pittsburgh. He's really into the not teen romance, but teen humor titles from the 60s. But this issue has pictures of the birds and the Lovin' Spoonful inside it. I mean, there are even some of it's like a tiger beat or something almost, So again, I was seeing long-haired like people, and even those at that point they were not wearing their hair. They were wearing their hair much longer. Speaking of Sabrina, I remember buying this. This blew my mind because to me it evolved Archie Comics into something else. With Sabrina as the hostess.
That blew my mind in second grade because it's the Archie house style, but it's gruesome EC kind of horror.
Yeah,
but drawn in that wholesome Archie style. And then I think by the third issue they wised up that it was a little too warped, and then they made it more like they got Gray Morrow to do the art where it was more appropriate to what the subject matter was.
Yeah. Did Gray Morrow ever draw a bad panel or a bad cover?
I haven't seen it.
No, never.
Not that I know of.
And yet I don't think he's in that top pantheon of people that we always talk about. But notice the four-armed guy here, poor guy. People that we always talk about. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Did somebody say something?
No, that was my phone acting up.
Oh. So the forearm thing sort of became an obsession with me. And when I met my friend George in '82, who turned me on to punk rock, and we were discussing our comic book memories, and he had quite a few, and he bought the Dollar Giant size stuff and all that. We were the same age, and either he or I brought up the forearm story that we had read in a Marvel reprint. And my memory of the forearm story was the Jack Kirby Stan Lee story where the skinhead nurse with four arms is banging inside the closet at the end of the story as the Reed Richards-esque scientist is going to the world nation UN to unveil the secret that these Mayan weirdos have come up from under the earth with four arms. I don't know if you guys remember that. It's called the Four-Armed Terror. But George argued with me that I was remembering it wrong, that maybe Stan Lee had written it, but Jack Kirby had not drawn it. And I just thought that it was crazy. How could he be? I mean, obviously my memory was my memory. So then he shows me his comic book reprint, which is a Bill Everett. It's the Bill Everett story, same story that Stan Lee wrote, but drawn by Bill Everett. You guys know what I'm talking about? And I may be misremembering it, but Bill Everett drew a forearm story by Stan Lee, and then Kirby drew the story. So we were both
same
right.
script, but
as I recall, I mean, shit, I could be wrong. I didn't have this till much later in life, but I mean, my God.
Whoa.
How could a guy who's an escape artist, plays in a rock and roll band, and he just happens to draw the greatest fucking comic book covers of all time? I mean, how could Steranko be that guy? I had another, a lot of times, I don't know about you guys, but I rode a school bus. I was probably like the last kid to get off the damn bus out in the country. And so these older kids would always be on the bus. It was like social media, except without the social media. So I would run into these older kids who had comic books, but they were always out of reach for me. And literally they had been published like 5 years before. But some of the kids were nice and they gave them to me. So remember, Bill Owen gave me this copy of Doctor Strange. And I don't think I connected with the fact that this was the Ditko Doctor Strange, because this guy had a mask, But I remember walking home from his house on a gravel road, looking at not only this, but an issue of Mad, the dollar-sized Mads that reprinted the Wally Wood stuff. And he gave me this as well, which of course Maurice Severin, and just amazing. This was one of my first encounters with the Hulk, before in the stuff that George Bingram gave me in the cardboard box in '69 or '70, whatever it was. So heard about the Watcher. This alien orange thing that's going up against the Hulk almost looks like the Thing.
Yeah.
But it isn't the Thing.
Hey, Mike, Dr. Fibes is asking if you have a channel on YouTube where you put up shows.
No, but go to Fantagraphics and buy my Teenage Tupelo book. Seriously. And I if you find me on Facebook, my Facebook profile picture is the Jack Kirby Dr. Doom poster, the Mary Marvel Marching Society poster of Dr. Doom.
I think if you had the inclination, you could do a great show on YouTube.
No, because I'm giving you the highlights right now.
Oh, no.
I remember my dad bringing this home to me. It's the actual copy. I just, like I mentioned earlier, that the Fantagraphics book that's been published on John Stanley, I can't think of the author's name. I mean, I could go in the room and find it. He also wrote a biography on James Warren from Warren Publishing. Bill Shelley.
Yeah.
Bill Shelley wrote this John Stanley Little Lulu appreciation. Not that John Stanley has anything to do with this, but kind of in a way he does, because when John Stanley left Dell and Gold Key, I think in his wake, a lot of these things were created. I want to think that this is after Melvin the Monster. I could be wrong.
I think maybe a little. I think that Little Monster started about 65, and Melvin the Monster might have started. You might be right, a couple years before. Melvin the Monster is more like Kennedy era. John
Stanley is such a private person. It's amazing that Bill Shelley got enough stuff to put out a book, but Fantagraphics published it. This is another book I was given by George Bingram. So I was introduced not only to horror comics. Again, I guess it's the anthology horror, stuff, shtick done over and over again. But, at the time, I don't think I recognized that picture of Boris Karloff as being the Frankenstein monster. Just things, you're given things as a kid in the early 70s, and it takes a while for this stuff to sink in that, these faces that's the Frankenstein monster up in the corner, except 30 years later. But I love this monster pose, throwing the fireball, because it's obviously blatantly taken from like a baseball pitcher pose that the cover artist just took, from a baseball pitcher doing his pose and applied it in the painting.
There's a whole book coming out about that artist, George Wilson.
Okay.
In about a month, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I never knew his name until about a year ago.
George Wilson?
Yeah, same as Dennis the Menace's neighbor. I learned the name from Graphic Man. This is really his show. I've just been filling in for him because he's been ill for about a month or a month and a half.
Well, I really like the deep dive stuff like that. for instance, how these gentlemen, these so-called hack artists, were able to produce masterpiece paintings on a deadline. And then I have to wonder, where are all of these paintings, these Tarzan, Korak, all these gold key paintings, Turok, Jungle Twins, all this stuff was painted.
Is that done with acrylics?
God, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that would be faster than oil. I mean, the oil wouldn't even be dry by the time you have to turn it into gold key.
Yeah.
I would love to see a documentary or a podcast just on things like that. Like, who are these people? Where are the paintings? How did they produce these things within, I don't know, 30 days or whatever, amount of time they had?
He was doing multiple paintings a month.
So here's another psychological mind game for a 7-year-old. I was given something like this, but it would be years before I would see the movie. And then in order to see the movie, I would have to stay up on a school night or something when, the local affiliate might be showing it at 3 a.m. or something. I mean, I don't even know if there's a mention of Harryhausen in this book at all. It's just about quasi poorly drawn serialization of the movie,
Yeah.
But I'm sure everybody has a copy of this. I'll wrap it up here by showing you some of the books I've drawn, the books I mentioned earlier.
Oh, good.
This is Cadavra #1 that Eros Fantagraphics put out in 1990. It's a story that I never quite told, and I'm still trying to write the ultimate screenplay for it. My idea now is I'll never live long enough to draw the comics that I stopped drawing in 93. But if I can write screenplays and AI comes along, like it's obviously coming along, one day some nerd sitting in his one-room apartment in Cleveland, Ohio will hit a couple of buttons and a screenplay can become a movie probably overnight. We won't live to see that, but for all you guys that are, I know all you guys are creative and you're all writing, drawing, whatever you're doing in your own way. If you just write it down and leave a memory of who you were and what you thought as we leave, the 20th century behind and we'll be gone one day. I swear to God, AI will produce your fantasies one day in a way that we can't even imagine right now. So beyond that soapbox, Dayton, Ohio. Cadaver is about a girl made from the pieces of dead movie stars, Sharon Tate, Jane Mansfield, Marilyn Monroe. The screenplay that I'm wanting to write right now gives her the head of the Black Dahlia. This was #2. Kenneth, Joe Riley ate this shit up.
Oh, yeah. I don't have that issue.
You
I have the first one, but I never got that issue.
Well, you better get on eBay, my friend. Because once I get famous, this stuff's going to be outrageous. It's going to be more expensive than the Mad Peck book.
Is that the second issue?
This is the second. This is the first. Of course, there's all the Big Daddy Roth, Aurora model hobby kits, famous monsters, sexploitation, Jack Kirby worship going on, a little bit of the Cramps thrown in,
Yeah.
Comic books, rock and roll, movies. This up here says, can you read it? She put the tits in stitches. So the third issue was going to say she put the fun in funeral, but I never got to it. The Eros line, I don't know. Can we show this? You want me to self-censor it?
Yeah, just
destroy the whole gimmick of it. Okay. These books, Bang Gang and Super Sex, were reviewed in the Village Voice literary supplement in '92, and the reviewer said I was recuperating the history of comic book art. So I thought that meant it was time I got out of it. But Super Sex, listen up, y'all. Super Sex right here that you can't really see on Bang Gang, on the cover of Bang Gang, then wound up with her own comic book, which I can't show you this either. I think I'm covering it. Secretive Orgians of the Bang Gang, featuring Super Sex. And Super Sex was a man-hater who got her powers from semen. Crickets. All right.
A little more shock.
And then here's Damselvis, Daughter of Helvis, which was really a fumetti, full of photos and making of stuff from the movie. Very, very little drawings. I will show you the drawing on the back. So that's Damselvis with her chopper. And now I was working on a Damselvis comic book, which I'll never finish, but it's about how you take Elvis and Evel Knievel and a bunch of things like that from the 70s and you combine them with silent movies or whatever. Her pit crew is made out of Lon Chaney characters. But when she jumps school buses, or let's say that Damselvis, Daughter of Helvis, can jump buildings like Superman used to be able to do, Damselvis can jump buildings on her motorcycle. But in my story, when she reaches the apex of the arc, she disappears into another dimension. So the people who paid their tickets to watch her crash on the other side, she never lands. And then you go into the story of where she went. Anywho, Damselvis, Daughter of Helvis turned into Helvis. And I started working on a Helvis comic. And it finally got published. And it turned into this.
Man, I don't have that one either. I have everything but that issue and the Cadavra #2.
That's because I self-published this, and there's only 300 copies of it.
Oh, well, that's why.
If you really want to be esoteric, put out your own book and don't promote it. But there's Helvis, hot rod eyeball and all, back cover. And now the back cover is an Aurora model hobby kit pose that I was friends with this guy in the early 90s when I was doing the comics for Fantagraphics, named Gary Macatura. Gary Macatura worked for Holland Company, and Holland Company owned the paper rights to Aurora. So if you noticed in the Damselvis drawing that I just showed you right here, it's kind of done in a Land of the Giants, Aurora sort of style.
Yeah.
Like you'd see on the back of a DC comic in the late 60s. And there's the Aurora brand right there. So what Gary Macatura did for me, he gave me official Aurora catalog numbers for Damselvis and Cadavra. And I don't know if I ever got a Helvis catalog number or not, but I still drew him sort of in the mummy pose because of the Egyptian motif of Memphis, you know, Memphis being the Egyptian capital and all this and that. And in this comic book, Helvis goes to hell, and he meets William Gaines.
Oh, man.
And William Gaines, can you see all that? This is before my wife and I had children, so I had lots of time to draw in ink. William Gaines is presiding over the cells of the Kefauver Commission. And then Helvis leaves Mr. Gaines and he goes into the desert, and he winds up at the very end of Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, where Tura Satana, spoiler alert, is dying in the desert. And so he takes Tura Satana's clothes because he doesn't have any. He's just wrapped in 8-track tape. But then when he does that, he unleashes his 3 ghosts, which are Rebelvis, Psychedelvis, and Elvicious. And then he has to escape Tura Satana. And then he winds up on Elvis's favorite roller coaster ride in Memphis, the Zippin' Pippin. And his 3 ghosts find him. And then there's a showdown.
Hey,
You still have all the original artwork for that?
I have it all, yeah.
Well, what you could do is you could Amazon, I think, will print books on demand for people, so they could order it, and then they print it like instantly within a day, and then they ship it out. You could do a second printing of those where it could get to more than 300 people, and then
You want to do that for me and make a chunk of change from it?
I think you just submit the files to them. I don't know exactly how. Eric, were you saying something?
Yeah, the Critters and I have to bounce. We have the reading scheduled 3 minutes from now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, don't. Sorry to bail on you, Mike. It was very nice meeting you.
Nice
And
meeting
you had some great,
you.
you had some great stuff. It's fascinating. So it's, yeah, if you guys, wrap up, we'll be over on the Kiki Puppet Show butchering Amazing Spider-Man 55.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll try to watch as soon as I get upstairs. But I'm going to hang out, if it's okay, Mike, with you for a few more minutes, and then we'll wrap the show up.
Oh,
It's
take
nice to
care,
see you guys.
guys.
I'm glad the puppets were able to come on tonight.
Yeah,
You guys
thanks for
are
having
always
us
a
on.
great addition to the show.
Good
Take
night,
care,
guys.
everybody. See you, Eric.
Later.
You warm my puppet heart, which is actually located at my wrist. But I'll see you next time.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye. So,
Hey, can
man,
I,
so as
your
I
audio-
recall, in the 90s, you were about to film another movie, and you were needing someone to help with special effects. And I said, I know this guy, Joe Riley. And I don't remember how exactly you guys met. Do you remember?
Well, let me, Kenneth, first, I got to say, your audio is crackling up on me.
Is that me? What the heck is that? I hear it's like a scratching noise.
It's like a weird, scratchy echo. Is it doing it on my voice?
No. I hear a scratching, but I don't hear it. Well, let me see what it's doing on the. I hear a scratching, but I don't hear it. It sounds like some animal eating something.
Huh?
I don't know what it is, man. But it's just I could hear you. It's just annoying. How did you meet Joe exactly? Do you remember?
How did I meet Joe?
Yeah.
Let me take one more drink. It's just tea. So I was a guest at the Dallas Fantasy Fair.
Yeah.
And the Cadaver comics had come out, and he must have come up to the table. I was really good friends with Dave Tosh, who did fanzines, and Mark Stokes, who did Zombie Boy. And I just actually messaged Mark Stokes today. I don't get to talk to him very much, but I was planning on making Teenage Tupelo, and maybe Joe was perplexed just in our conversations that I was stopping. I was not drawing comics. I was going to make movies, but then his art was great, so I was perplexed that he was also working on movies, and then he would draw whenever he could, and then of course, along with you, he had this obsession with psychotronic cinema and videos and crazy stuff. So I guess that's how we met. It had to have been the Dallas Fantasy Fair. And I remember, were you with us, Kip? We all went out and had pizza at some restaurant.
Probably.
That's when I realized that this idea of making my next movie could be so much better if Joe was available to do the practical effects on it. And maybe Teenage Tupelo had already been made, but then Joe came on board for the Sore Losers movie, which just came out on Blu-ray in 2018. And I've got a big Joe Riley section in the Blu-ray that honestly I kind of wish his kid knew about. I know he has a boy.
Yeah, I did an episode where I was talking about my memories of Joe Riley, and he commented down below because I guess he must occasionally look on YouTube and look up his father's name and saw it. So
well, you could could
you is there like another spot in your house where you could sit with your phone? Because I don't know, it almost
say that again.
It almost sounds like the interference might be coming from maybe you're near something where you moved a few feet away, it would stop the sound effect.
Let me try coming up in the front of the house. Okay, now say something.
Something.
Can you hear me? Hear me? 1, 2, 3.
I hear you. It's like your voice is sped up a little bit, and then there's this weird robot sound in the background. But
So you're saying it's on the audio problem is on my end?
I don't know. Wait, what? I can't tell.
Let me
Here, I'll cut my microphone.
Whoa! Now I can hear you.
Whoop! What the heck? Did I just? I think his phone. You know what it was? His phone was dying. That's what that sound was, because he just disappeared. You know, when your battery gets low, it starts to do weird things. I think that's what happened. I think his phone wasn't plugged in. Anyway, I need to have Mike McCarthy back on again soon and share stories with him. Let's see. Audio's bad on both of you. Fixed. Yeah, I think his battery was dying. Anyway, I'll try to do another live stream on a different night and invite Mike on, because I think there's a lot of great stories. And, you know, it's like I've got about 30 years of catching up with Mike. Because when I was talking with him a lot was the mid 90s. And then I more recently got in touch with him. I'd hear from him every few years, but he was doing that big book retrospective and wanted me to do a couple of page spread, write about things. And so anyway, he called me, he texted me this morning and asked for my address to send that, so he could send me that book, which I've been waiting for. Yeah, that was during the pandemic when he asked me about that. But anyway, so Graphic Man, the man that designed these trading cards, will be back next week with the 4-color fossils. It'll be over on the Graphic Man channel. So let's turn off the sophisticated lighting system, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah. Hold on. I heard a weird noise. I don't know what was that. Oh, don't worry about it. Anyway, so Michael will be back next week. If you would be so kind to like this video and thumbs up, whatever the heck, and subscribe and ring the bell to get notifications. I'm getting back to work. Oh, Mike's back. Excellent. Fantastic.
Right, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Your battery died, didn't it?
Yeah.
That was, I remember now, sometimes when you get that weird distorted noise, it's the sound of your battery dying.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That happens to me all the time. So,
Who's with
anyway,
Are we the only people left?
no, there's 24 people watching. That's a lot of people. No, we're the only people left because on Wednesday nights about this time, those puppets and Eric, they remember the old Power Records where they would, read along with the comic? They do that on YouTube. They pick some old Silver Age comic and they act out all the voices, and I think they do it on Friday nights too. So they had to go and do that because they had their regular fans waiting. The puppets don't normally come on Wednesday night. Normally, Graphic Man, his name is Micah. He lives down in Missouri. He does this show. He's been doing it for a few years, and it's just different comic collectors come on.
Yeah.
A lot of the regulars didn't show up tonight for whatever reason, different reasons, but We just show comics and talk about comics, and just it's like a show and tell thing. And Micah, he got sick, and his doctor said you need to be under bed rest for the next month or so. So he says, I'm not going to be able to do the show for a while. So I said, I'll take over until you're better. He'll be back next week.
Yeah.
So that's just what I've been trying to do. I'm not as, he's more of a likable guy like Johnny Carson. And I'm more like, man, my Alzheimer's hitting me. The guy before Johnny Carson that would walk off the set and get angry.
Jack Parr.
Jack Parr. I'm more of, so I'm sure people would be very glad to see Micah back next week. But anyway, so the deal with Joe Riley is we were like brothers. You know, he did artwork for this. In fact, I just found a piece he did. I'll show you.
I have to sit next to my phone charger, so my background's not that cool.
You know, I've got paintings by him. I've got original art. All these models he built. I almost feel like I should put it all together and have an exhibit like in a museum dedicated to Joe Riley. But I've done episodes of the show where I just go around the house and show different things that Joe did and talk about memories of him. But I don't know. I remember right after you met him, you were filming that movie. And he got everything ready, and he was going off on a plane, and then I remember you needed the heroine to lift a motorcycle over her head, and he built this really elaborate model kit of a motorcycle and used forced perspective, I guess, to make it look like she was really lifting it. He was able to pull off really great special effects for like no money.
Man, my lighting is so bad in here, and I got to keep finding plugins.
Yeah. Here, I'm going to give myself the full screen. I'll show you this piece of art I just recently found that he did for the Sophisticate. It's Jen from Space Ghost.
I've got that issue.
Yeah, and that's Joe Riley, 95. But anyway, at some point, you know, he just stopped answering my calls for whatever reason. Maybe I annoyed his wife, or I don't know, or maybe he was so busy in his life, you know, he's having a kid that, you know, maybe I was just annoying, but he just kind of disappeared. And then years later, MySpace exists, and I decide, well, I'm not going to go on MySpace and use my real name. So I come up with this name Gratu, which was the giant ant from the old Strange Tales, Stan Lee, and I go on MySpace and I use the Scuzzfink model kit, the Big Daddy Roth Martian, as my picture, and then I get this friend request or whatever you called it on MySpace from this other Ratfink looking guy that's obviously Joe Riley, and I said, hey, it's me, it's Kenneth, and it's like, oh, and it's like we talked like everything was great, you know, it's like everything was forgiven, you know, it's like, and we were going to go to a Universal Monsters convention in Grand Prairie. We set up plans, and everything was great. And then the next morning I get a call from my friend Steve. Did you hear what happened to Joe Riley? He's like, he had a heart attack. And it's like, I was just talking to him last night, and we were, and it's like, if this is a proof that a God exists, that for whatever problem there was he had with me, it was all made up. And I could have been the last person he talked to. I don't know. It was pretty late at night. It could have happened right after I was so happy that at least we were able to, I can't say I'm happy about it. It's nice that I was able to talk to him before that happened.
Yeah, but, I was talking to, I think he passed away in 2006 or 7.
Yeah, that's
7.
Yeah.
And sorry, hold on. Yeah, he and I were talking about, I had met this insurance salesman who came into Sun Studio where I worked, named Corey Dials. And I just thought she was like the living embodiment of a Frank Frazetta, a female of a painting, and beautiful, totally beautiful in an entirely different way than Delana was beautiful or the other starlets that I'd worked with. And then I called Joe, and 2007, whatever mode of communication, pictures, emails, whatever. And he agreed with me that she was like, of that Vampirella, sort of ilk, that Asiatic and Western square jawed, sort of wearer of bangs and, like someone who should be immortalized forever. So Joe and I started working on ideas for what might be a Cadaver movie, which I'd been working on forever. And then he passed away. So it's like, it's hard to, first of all, it's hard to get a genius to help you who will probably work for free or next to nothing, who understands the aesthetics of all the stuff that we've been talking about for the last 2 hours. Once that person's gone, I can't, it's funny. A lot of special effects guys that I've known have passed away, more so statistically than any of the other people that were involved in my movies. That's a whole other tangent, rabbit hole, whatever. But I wanted to show you, if I can, because
Sure.
my phone's plugged in. See that there's the Super 8 camera that I shot Teenage Tupelo with, and the motorcycle that Joe built that Delana holds over her head in the Sore Losers is right here.
Oh,
If I tilt it up, it's in like 18 pieces. Joe gave it to Delana, and then Delana sent it to me last year when we were working on the Teenage Tupelo book. She's like, you might as well have this because I don't know what to do with it. And of course, now I don't know what to do with it, except it's in my cabinet of things.
the problem was that Joe Riley liked to build his model kits with super glue, and super glue doesn't hold like model kit glue. And so sometimes pieces will fall off and you'll have to reassemble them.
Why did he do that?
I know he knew better. I think he just preferred it. But it's just one of those things like, some artists might have liked to use rubber cement, but eventually it's going to turn brown and the pieces are going to fall off the art. But it works temporarily. But if you want to do something that's going to last, it doesn't work so much.
Hey, I want to, speaking of Joe, there's an article in here that in my Teenage Tupelo book that John Bifus, the local film writer, wrote. And I put the illustration. Let me see if I can frame this. It's so dark. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But that's a Joe Riley illustration of me driving a hot rod like Big Daddy Ross style while Dr. Deadly is hanging onto the tail fin.
If we could get all the Joe Riley art that's out there, I don't know how many pieces you have of his original art, combine it all together. Maybe we could get Fantagraphics or somebody to put out a publication of the lost art of Joe Riley. I mean, maybe there'd be maybe photographs of model kits he built, and I might have the only existing slee stack.
Oh wow!
That he built.
I don't have any of the foam appliances, but if you get the Sore Losers Blu-ray and you have your Blu-ray player, you can go into an entire Joe Riley menu section on the Blu-ray of sketches and artwork that he sent me in the mail of how he was designing the old lady character to look, who was deteriorating throughout the movie. That's one thing that comes to mind. And he drew another picture of me sitting on a rock pregnant.
What?
Yeah, he was going crazy because some days he didn't have. So I take all these weirdos, garage rockers, performance artists. If you've seen the Sore Losers, you know what I'm talking about. And Corinne Elkins, who's the redhead, who's like, the chanteuse exotique, who's playing a part in the movie. And I would have to tell Corinne to put clothes on. You know, like my 77-year-old dad would be sitting around the house and I'm like, Corinne, put some clothes on, please. But then my dad would like take her to the liquor store. Again, sore loser stories. But Joe was bored, and so he would just draw things. So he drew me pregnant, sitting on a rock. But I was giving birth to the Sore Losers, the movie.
Oh, okay.
And I actually have that piece of original art somewhere because I've been going through things since COVID. It's given me time to go through things and
Yeah,
chronicle the archive
sounds like they're
things.
bringing the lockdowns back just in time for you to maybe make a Cadavra movie.
If anybody, you know, I can make something out of nothing, but I got tired of trying to make something. It's like the more movies you make, the better you get. The more comics you draw, the better you get. And I felt like after Super Starlet AD, which Troma had put out, I was at a point to make Cadavra. And this was around 2001, and I was talking to Delana about it. But I just never got the money. I mean, I would go to these. I could go to comic book conventions, meet editors like Gary Groth at Fantagraphics Books, and they go, "Yeah, this is really good. We'll publish it. All you got to do is draw it. We don't care." And, you know, no editing involved. They would just take what you gave them. They trusted you. I've never found a producer or any sort of money person like that at a film festival. It's quite the opposite, actually. It's almost like they show up with an agenda and they can't be thwarted in their approach towards the career path they've taken, which is what's doomed movies to be the crappy shit that they are now.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, look at this. This is on YouTube. A guy that is showing off a Joe Riley, Glenn Strange Frankenstein mask from 2002.
Dang.
I mean, it's really a high quality mask.
Wow.
I mean, he did like Planet of the Apes gorillas that looked better than anything I ever saw. I mean, this guy that was done, you know, officially.
Who is that guy?
His name is Ryan's Monster. What? Sorry, Ryan's Monster Unveiling.
Okay.
I guess I should subscribe to him. He looks like a guy that collects monster masks. So he has a Joe Riley Frankenstein mask, and
it doesn't surprise me. Like a Don Post thing, except much better.
Yeah. Yeah, he did everything top notch. I mean,
I wanted to tell you one Joe Riley story while we were making the Sore Losers. So time finally came. We shot the Sore Losers 47 days straight, the rest of your life off. That's what we told everybody that was, you know, involved. And there was only one break, and we had a rock and roll show at the Antenna Club where the bands that were in the movie performed, and that was the only break we had. So Joe was ready to go back to Dallas, and I owed him $300, maybe less, maybe more, something like that. And he was tired of being in Mississippi, and we would go off to Memphis, and he would go with us. And he's in the hippie death scene in the Sore Losers, by the way. You can see him down in the corner dancing. But the time came, and we were in Mississippi, and he was going to get in his truck, where he had arrived in this little Toyota pickup, a really small pickup, the first night that we were filming the hands coming through the graves that were holding down Jack Oblivion. These are the ghosts or the zombies of the original 11 people that had been killed by him 40 years before. And I had built, me and Emmy Collins and Mike Hunkley, maybe a couple other people, had built this platform of dirt on top of bricks. But as we started shooting the scenes with people underneath the platform with pre-cut holes that were sticking their hands up to grab Jack, the platform began to shift as if to fall, as if to land on 5 people that were under the platform. Ugh. That was covered in dirt and weighed, you know, hundreds and hundreds of pounds. So, but got to make the movie. It's got to be done. And Joe shows up. And Joe goes, hey, you know, the weight of this entire platform is shifting. Maybe we should do something about it. And I'm like, you're the special effects guy, Joe. What do you got in mind? So he takes his Toyota truck and he backs it up against the whole platform of graveyard dirt so that now it's stabilized against the grill of his truck, and he saves the day. Like, you know, nobody got hurt, and just literally shows up. And that's the kind of person Joe was. He would show up, he'd come up with a solution. And when he wasn't doing that, he was drawing or talking about Japanese cartoons or whatever. But on that final day, this is like 3 weeks later, he had to get back to Dallas, probably to hang out with you or do something cool or make some money, real money. And my money was in my bank account in Memphis, 100 miles away. But my wife, Kim, was going to be that person, and she was going to go by the bank and get the money and bring it to Joe. And he was going to get in his truck, and everybody was going to be happy, and he was going to leave. So my wife goes in this bank in Memphis, where I am now, in Memphis, Tennessee. And it takes her forever. And there's no cell phones. You know, this is 1996. It takes her forever to get to Mississippi. And Joe is now hours late, and it's going to be dark when he gets back to Dallas. And she finally pulls back in the driveway, and Joe's pissed. And he's like, where were you? And I'm like, yeah, come on. Where were you? Joe's waiting on his money. And my wife just unleashes this stream of profanities, which I won't even bother to go into here. And she goes, brr, brr. The bank that I was in, waiting in line to get Joe's money, was held up by a couple of guys with masks on. We had to lay on the floor. I had a gun pointed at my head. And she goes, and then they leave. They don't kill anybody, but then the cops show up, and then the cops have to talk to us. So that's where I've been, Pepper. So Joe's just sitting there going, okay, so you couldn't get my money because the bank was held up. So he gets in his truck and leaves.
Okay.
I sent him a check.
Okay.
Sent him a check in the mail.
Yeah. That's wild.
World of low budget movie making.
Yeah, but you know, the amount of money you paid him probably equaled the hundreds of thousands of dollars for, you know, some professional, if not more, professional, Hollywood type,
Well, yeah, and he was crafting things out of his mind, his mind and his heart, and then shows up. He built a 6-foot expanding wingspan made out of ostrich feathers. I had a character in the movie The Malt Liquor Angel. She was a completely naked friend of mine, Mary Wills, who played the Malt Liquor Angel, and she would sit with her back up against these wings in ways that the camera couldn't see, and Joe would be off camera operating the wings, and they were so primitive. It was almost like Sid and Marty Krofft type stuff, but it was super effective. And then you had Guitar Wolf, the 3 punk rock dudes from Japan that show up in the scene with a naked angel, and it just it does look like a Saturday morning, but like a Saturday morning from Mars or something, cartoon show from Mars with nudity. And that was our exploitation movie, that we made. Joe was always just out of frame with a brush dabbing on blood or maneuvering some, angel wings or applying, rotted tissue to someone who's a zombie, Getty Chasen, who played the mother who was in the Gore movies. He just got along with everybody, and everybody. And he handled our firearms because we had blanks. But Hollywood is having all these revelations now about don't use firearms on sets. Well, I figured that shit out in 1998 when we shot Super Starlet. My friend Wheat Buckley just animated gunfire coming out of the barrel of the guns. But in 96, we actually had big, huge ass guns that fired blanks that Joe took care of, and very professionally, I might add. Just because we were making a movie that cost $31,000, it didn't mean that we crew, the cast, we weren't being professional and all that stuff.
It's a clock in the other room. Could you hear that?
Yeah. But that's my Joe Riley stuff, and he's he's creeped into the Teenage Tupelo book. He's on the Sword Losers Blu-ray. The only way to get this stuff is, well, my Blu-rays are through me. If you could Facebook me, or if people want to get in touch with me through you, Kenneth, they could do that. But
okay,
if you haven't seen my movies, then you may have thought that exploitation films went away in the 60s or 70s, but we were sort of the last vanguard, and your writing and sophisticated fanzine was of that vanguard, where for a small moment in time, we thought we were the beginning of something cool and crazy that would at least be relegated to cable television. But instead, we were the last wave of the David Friedman, Herschel Gordon Lewis, and all the whole 60s ilk of television shows and that sort of spirit and identity, which had, I guess, become unpopular.
Well, the 90s, there was an explosion of that culture. It seems like maybe it died when the internet appeared.
Yeah. I blame 9/11, the internet. I blame, sometimes the decades don't start with zeros or ones. They start when something traumatic or weird happens. Like when Kennedy gets shot, that's really when the 60s began.
Right. I was just thinking that. Yeah.
And it's when color film and color and psychedelia. I always wanted to draw this, and I never did. But the idea of Kennedy's brain leaving his skull was, to me, the first psychedelic thought that happens on color film, Super 8, no less. And only Super 8 was capable of capturing Bigfoot, Kennedy's assassination. It was like the post-Eisenhower video of sorts. Scopatones, of course, all that stuff. And while that may seem like a disgusting thought, to me, it's something that Robert Williams would take and have a field day with in a painting,
Yeah.
Yeah. But the 60s start there. I think the 70s start with Watergate, or the 60s end with Watergate. So in other words, you have decades that really begin, well, and you have punk rock beginning, I think, in 73 with Iggy and the Stooges' Raw Power, where up until then, you had glam rock being the ruination or the decay or the kiss off to all the other previous musical genres. It hit me just the other, okay, so there's this author named Peter Stanfield, and become really good friends with him on Facebook, and we did a Zoom call, and if you ever listen to Mike Stacks, who puts out Ugly Things fanzine, he has a podcast.
Oh, really?
Yes, he has an Ugly Things podcast, which covers 60s garage and beat music. And
Is it on YouTube or on Spotify or something?
Wherever you listen to podcasts, I guess. But yeah,
Probably
and you can listen to it for free. But Stanfield was on his show talking about a book that he had written called 1972 Pinups. And the whole book was about T-Rex, the New York Dolls, Roxy Music, David Bowie, maybe that's it. Alice Cooper, of course, thrown in. And talking about the end of eras and the beginning of eras. And the word punk was used way before glam was used. That was a startling revelation in the book. Glam didn't come up. It gave me this whole idea that I guess I've always known in a way, that glam rock was rockabilly with long hair.
Okay.
Mullets, perhaps, and things like that, but still long hair and makeup. So there's this new drink. Have you ever read an author named Nick Cohn?
Remind me.
Nikhchon.
I'm not sure. Remind me what he wrote.
So Nick Cohn got with Guy Pielart, the Belgian Andy Warhol, so to speak. and put out a book called Rock Dreams. Do you remember Rock Dreams was full of like weird transgressive paintings of rock stars like Lou Reed and Bowie and Elvis, and
Yeah.
and Nick Cohn provided the text. But Nick Cohn was the first rock journalist. He wrote the first books on rock criticism that you can find on Amazon fairly cheaply. But Stanfield has turned me on to all this stuff, and is just a great all-around guy. But the 1972 Pinups book is great because it made me, it was like a novel-length critique that leads up to Bowie releasing Pinups in 73, which is covers. Pinups is, if you've heard Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, you've heard Aladdin Sane, and Aladdin Sane is supposed to be the end of Ziggy Stardust. But really, if you go on to the next album and listen to Mick Ronson and Bowie doing Pinups, it's Bowie taking records that he grew up on as a teenager, like we grew up on comic books. I didn't know about this stuff at all, but to me, discovering glam rock and punk rock later, and exploitation movies later with the research volumes, research Incredibly Strange Films, these idioms, these mediums, these bad movies, these distortion, all this stuff reflects back on comic books. It all points back to the same thrill and mistaken ideas, and you're trying to figure out your identity as a person. And after comic books, after you reach a certain age through puberty, maybe you don't ever go back to comics. You go into rock and roll. Well, now a young person, you can't go to a grocery store to buy a comic book. You can't listen to rock and roll on the radio because it's dead. You can't go see a movie in a theater that isn't politically motivated or is just fun or is just well written. The writers are on strike. Maybe who cares? Because they're not writing anything
no one noticed.
I would go pay to see. But and Stanfield just opened my mind up to this thing, and we all know this, and you can repeat it every day. And it's not about cynicism. It's about a longing for something that you wish younger people had, and maybe they do have it in their own way. My kids found other ways to be happy, and but they seem like more like desperate modes of entertainment than, say, something big and goofy and dynamic and powerful like a Jack Kirby comic or something like that. Which you could look at comic books being generational, decade starting, stopping type things. But with Pinups, Bowie picked, 10, 12, 14 tracks, and they're all cover songs from his teenage years. And there's 2 cover songs on there from a band called The Pretty Things. Well, Mike Stax took the, affection for The Pretty Things and made the Ugly Things fanzine out of it and so forth. But it started me to listening to The Pretty Things, which I always kind of knew about them, but I never really knew that much about them. But Dick Taylor was this guy who was in the Rolling Stones along with Keith, Richard, and Brian Jones. But they kind of kicked him out of the band because they made him play bass because they had 3 guitar players at that point and they didn't want him to be in the band. So Dick Taylor goes and starts The Pretty Things. So he goes from the Rolling Stones to The Pretty Things, and The Pretty Things have 2 or 3 hit singles before the Stones ever put out Satisfaction. But then after their initial singles, they begin to be put in the dustbin of history, except for Bowie, who resurrects them on Pinups with a song called Rosalind and Don't Bring Me Down. Those 2 songs are Pretty Things songs. But if you go back to the beginning of Ziggy Stardust and look at an old English rock and roll show called Oh Grey Whistle Test, it's kind of like a beat show, that England would put on in the old days where these glam rockers started infiltrating the show. There's Bowie doing the song that he wrote called Oh You Pretty Things. So it's not so much Vince Taylor or, whatever influences Bowie maybe claims to talk about in interviews, Iggy Pop, Lou Reed, all this other stuff. It's really the Pretty Things that bookend the beginning of Ziggy and the end of Ziggy with Pinups. And those are the kind of things that remind me of comic books.
All right.
Because 72, 73 72 is supposed to be the end of the monster era, the monster craze era, according to some book I read on it. 72 is glam rock before it becomes punk rock in 73, 74. And then Stanfield writes this book on 72, which culminates with 73. I'm just running my mouth, man.
No, well, it's fascinating. Yeah. Man, I wish we could have a more regular show where we could talk.
How many people are listening now?
Well, 20.
Okay. I thought maybe 2.
Well, I'm not some big giant person that's got thousands of people watching. But I've got a little small group of about 500, a little more than 500, maybe less than that. There's actually about 300 people that either that or they keep coming back multiple times to watch a video. But there's like a loyal following. But that's, I'm never going to be really big on YouTube because,
it's okay.
YouTube.
It's okay. Well, hey, that Captain America shield on your shirt.
Oh.
So do you know what that design pattern is called?
This with the
shield, the op art, the pop art of it, the shape of it. So Stanfield was making posts on Facebook a while back, and he was talking about the bus stations, or the train stations in London, how they have the circles.
Yeah.
And also the rock band The Who,
I was associated with the mods.
Huh?
Associated with the mods.
Right, but that design is called a roundel.
Roundel.
ROUNDEL, a roundel. In England, anyway, it's called that. I'd never heard it called that in America. But so the Who encapsulated their logo into a roundel, which was kind of like the Union Jack, right?
Yeah.
So what I have to wonder is, I wonder if Pete Townshend or Roger Daltrey or any of those guys, and I guess it was probably Pete Townshend because he was the intellectual of the group. Was he a Captain America fan? Did he come up with the design for the Who logo encapsulated in a roundel based on Jack Kirby's redesign of the circular shield? That's the kind of shit that I sit around thinking about all day long.
I figured that was some British symbol that they used in the subway or something. The round.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Sorry, 20 people. We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe we ought to, it'd be cool if maybe once a month or something you could come on and we could just talk about stuff.
Can I give you a sneak preview of what we can talk about next time?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
All right. My phone charger is only 3 feet long, so I'm in the dining room in my Gorilla Monster Films Museum. But if I turn the phone this way, you'll see 16-inch statuettes of.
Let me give you the full screen. Sorry.
These are sculptures, small sculptures I'm working on, which I hope to make into 7-foot bronze sculptures, and we can talk about that the next time. Bowie's in there too somewhere.
Oh my gosh! I didn't know that you were a sculptor too.
I didn't either until I had to make the rent. So I had to pay. I had to figure out a way to get the Johnny Cash. If anybody who cares or is listening looks up Cooper Young Johnny Cash or Cooper Young or Memphis Johnny Cash sculpture, they'll see that I took my Aurora model hobby kit fascination and turned it into a 7-foot tall bronze of not Boris Karloff, but Johnny Cash.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So,
there's only so many degrees of separation between Johnny Cash and, say, Lon Chaney Jr. anyway.
Did you ever see, there were some artists that made life-size versions of the Aurora monster kits. Did you see those photos?
No, that's insanity.
Let me see if I can't pull this up.
It's cool insanity. But see, how does somebody do that and then make a living? And I just that's I
don't know.
I don't understand that. That seems like my life's work. So he goes from 1/8 scale to 1/1 scale.
Yeah, but they're made completely realistic.
Oh,
Here
I'm
I
sure.
found
Well,
one of them.
now you can do 3D modeling, so maybe it wouldn't take that long to do it.
Well, it's hold on. Let me give myself the full
Maybe
screen. It's
he
not
used it.
it's
He made
not
them.
done with. It's,
Yeah.
Can you see?
Yeah. You're telling me that's what, 7 feet tall?
It's the size of a see, and you can see the side of the Frankenstein. Let me see if I can't.
God.
Yeah,
dang.
it's the size. It's a human size. Yeah. Let me see if I
Somebody
can find
should.
the
I
rest.
mean, that guy should be like visiting every convention with that stuff.
His name is Mike Hill.
And you're telling me about a lot of stuff too that I can't. I'm not even writing down, or like that Joe Riley mask dude a while ago.
Well, you just replay this. This is going to stay on YouTube. This is.
Oh no. Well, if this is going to stay on YouTube, then I should probably send out an "I love you" to my girlfriend.
Oh yeah, excellent.
I probably should.
Yeah. Oh, here. So I found the Mummy and Frankenstein as well.
But the problem with these photos is there's no comparison to real life in them. You know what I mean? Somebody needs to be standing there next to them, so the wow factor.
You're right. It looks like the Mummy's legs are a little too skinny. What can I say? It's not like.
There go you or I. You know. No, that's fantastic. I remember waking up one night and there was enough moonlight or something coming in the window that my Phantom of the Opera was looking at me like with the glow parts, or maybe it was the airplane glue that was hanging in the air. I don't know what it was, but scared the hell out of me. Those things scared me when I was a kid. I had to leave them usually in another room when I went to sleep.
The glow? Yeah, the glow was, I don't know what they used in that plastic that it would light up the room.
Cat pee? I don't know. But you're obviously familiar with the James Bama story about all that.
About the paintings on the box. What story is that?
Well, James Bama, who, of course, did all these amazing Western paperback covers, the Doc Savage covers.
Right.
I mean, amazing. And all this other stuff he did. And then Aurora, paid him to do the Frightening Lightning boxes, the long boxes. So he did these very respectful interpretations of the Universal monsters. And then my theory is when pop art became big, which was almost like when those Frightening Lightning kits were coming out in '62, that's the same year that Andy Warhol puts up Marilyn, the pop-colored freeze frame from the movie Niagara. I mean, she dies like 4 weeks before Warhol's exhibit starts. So that gives Warhol this boost of talk about timing, So yeah. Marilyn's portrait goes up in this New York gallery. Warhol becomes a star. The soup cans, come into play, all this and that. And then 4 years later or whatever it was, somebody at Aurora, I've got the books. I'm sorry, I can't remember the names. Somebody at Aurora finally gets the memo that pop art has happened. I mean, this is my theory. So they call Bama up and they go, "Hey, can you make some pop art paintings of those paintings that you did back in the late or the early '60s?" So maybe, and they couldn't decide maybe what to pay him, or he wanted too much money, or maybe they already knew. But Bama goes back in to the original paintings and he paints the glow colors over the original masters of his oil paintings.
Yeah.
You knew that?
Well, I knew that when they did the square boxes instead of the long boxes that someone painted over parts of his original paintings. I knew that had happened.
Well, see, I never even thought about that. But and maybe one of our 20 people can correct me. Maybe it was someone besides Bama that can. Maybe you would think that Bama would say, "No, I'm not going to destroy my original artwork by painting a bunch of day glow fluorescent colors. You know, even Godzilla. You know, like I
Yeah.
respect my Godzilla painting so much, I will not do this. But from what I read, he did alter them, and so therefore the original was lost forever.
Not all of them. I think the Dracula survived, but some of them were messed up. And I think what it is you got the tall painting,
Hey,
and then there's a square part where it's been messed with, and then the legs are okay. It was a. I'm not sure if he did it or if someone else did it, but.
My son is telling me I need to listen to him right now. What's going on?
Oh, you got to run.
My 19-year-old son just came in and said Toho Studios is making a new Godzilla movie.
Oh yeah. There's a trailer on YouTube.
This is Kenneth and 20 other people on a podcast show.
It's like Godzilla -1 or something. I saw a trailer for it earlier today where it's really interesting. You see the destruction from the point of view of people, you know, looking up at this. It's I think what they try to do with Cloverfield, Toho's doing.
I've never seen Cloverfield.
Yeah, I remember it was pretty good, but they made like 15 other movies. I don't even know. But yeah, there's a new Godzilla movie. I haven't seen the Shin Godzilla yet. I don't think, you know, you were talking about Joe Riley talking about Japanese cartoons. He probably was talking about Japanese live action. Unless I'm mistaken, I think he didn't really like the Japanese animation. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I think he was more into Ultraman and he was really into Ultraman. And then he had this friend, when I first met him, he had this friend named Eddie Holland that was really into Kamen Rider. They did a public access show before I met them, and they were best friends. It was about Japanese monsters and superheroes, and it was called Monster Attack Team. And I've got it somewhere on VHS, all the episodes, but right about the time I met Joe Riley, he'd had a falling out with his friend, and I kind of became friends with both of them, but just individually because they weren't hanging out together anymore.
Right.
But that was the show he did before The Hypnotic Eye.
Yeah, he showed me so much of that stuff. I didn't even know what I was looking at, and maybe that was some of your stuff too. Half the time. Hey, do you recall? And maybe this was not Billy Fury. Who was this? The Scopatone era rockabilly guy who made a Scopatone. He just stands in front of the camera with his band. Is it Vince Taylor?
The guy with all the leather,
all the leather, gloves. And he wears black gloves too.
Yeah, I think he was. I think that was Vince Taylor. There was another rockabilly guy that's like in front of a Las Vegas pool or something. With
yeah, but that's not the one I'm thinking of.
No, the one you're thinking of is got the black leather and I think
he's the one. He's the one who claimed he was the Messiah a few years later.
Okay.
But Bowie used Vince Taylor as one of the legendary backdrops, research characters for Ziggy Stardust. But I didn't know that at the time because I used that Vince Taylor Scopatone to sort of model a Helvis 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 type, the archetype that I created with the character. You know, somebody who post-war American culture spits out of like the motorcycle gang, you know, sort of wild ones mentality that meets, you know, country and blues head on. And
that's
just fascinating. These are just fascinating. The American archetypes during that period are fascinating, and they continue to fuel my imagination.
Well, it's like another culture trying to figure out an American archetype. And so it's the British trying to ape Elvis, but they get it a little wrong because Vince Taylor
but they play up this goth angle. But goth won't exist for another 20 years. But
Yeah.
it's all coming out of Elvis's sensibilities and earnestness, and maverickism and everything. When you've got an idea as rich as Elvis Presley, then it can expand for several decades and all the way through punk rock.
Yeah.
But I just found that to be super interesting, and part of what I said earlier about Elvis, and I should probably let you go here in a second, but when Elvis is born in 1935, Will Rogers dies in a plane crash. Bride of Frankenstein is released. All these musical things happen. Robert Johnson is recording in Texas, his blues work.
Yeah.
Elvis is born into Bride of Frankenstein, and then he dies in 1977 at the height of punk rock.
Yeah.
So that 42 years between 35 and 77 that Elvis experiences as a human being, to me, is the rise and fall of Western pop culture. I say American pop culture, but it's really Western, where you actually wanted to be an American. If you lived in Thailand or somewhere, you probably had, a Beatle look because of Western influence, or you looked like Elvis way into the Beatle era because of the American influence. Comic books, rock and roll, and movies were so vital that it has warped your entire identity as a human being. What identity would you have without the period of time that Elvis Presley lived in?
Yeah. You make a good point, because 1977, a lot of the comic books just were never as good after 77.
They say the underground comics
the 80s,
died
I don't
too.
think were the 90s especially, and I loved Star Wars when it came out. I still love the original Star Wars, but when it came out, it killed the monster boom. Famous Monsters was all about monsters, and then all of a sudden it was R2-D2 on the cover, and all the wonderful Captain Company ads at the back were all for Star Wars, and then Battlestar Galactica, and then it's just like, it was like, you're right, when Elvis died, it's like culture just went off the cliff.
It's because, well, I think some of it's coincidence, but like Star Wars was the culmination of everything that Famous Monsters had dreamed of since issue number 1.
Yeah.
So when the culmination is reached, it's kind of like the Ramones are the culmination, or David Bowie is the culmination. This Western idea that everything's got, capitalism is eating everything, and you've got to, your next movie, your next comic book, your next band that you're in, everything's got to be bigger or different or better than last year's model, and it finally ends. You're bending genres constantly. Like a band like AC/DC or a monster like Godzilla, they will always be relevant because they're stuck within their genres. Like rap music is a genre. There'll always be rap music because it's a genre. There'll always be mysteries and romance novels because they're genres. But then there's certain things that we really like that were progressive strains within the genre. And then we followed those things. But there's a certain, like rock and roll progressed until punk rock. And then punk rock just sort of becomes a funeral for rockabilly, where it all started. And Star Wars is sort of like a funeral or culmination of Forbidden Planet and This Island Earth and, just everything. So it's like, why go? So the last thing I'll say, I'm sorry if I'm running my mouth too much, but nothing of any importance has happened in pop culture, Western pop culture, because I don't know about the East, honestly. It's not my forte. But nothing of any original importance has happened in Western pop culture since the death of Elvis Presley. Now you can say, well, what about so-and-so in 1984? Anything that happened, like look at Dave Stevens, for example. Dave Stevens' Rocketeer was fucking amazing. I knew Dave Stevens, a fantastic person. But he took Betty Page from the 50s and Cliff Secord from the 30s. He was drawing back on the periods where Elvis was alive, where American pop culture was alive, to make The Rocketeer. The fact that it came out in 82, 83, 84, it comes out within a graveyard of our pop culture existence.
There was nothing 80s about his work. I think I saw one cover that looked 80s that he did for, it was like some romance. It didn't ever really, it was, everything was movie serials, old pinups. He just looked like a cover artist for Fiction House. He was just amazing. But he was just a man born out of time.
That's just one example. I challenge any of the 20 people that are listening right now, and you know it's true, to give me one example of something cool and original that happened after 1977 that does not directly draw its prime identity and origin back to the golden age of American pop culture from 35.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Marvel movies when they were good at the very beginning. I can't. And,
well, there are exceptions, of course, and I talk about these in my Teenage Tupelo book. King Kong comes in 1933, 2 years before Elvis is born, and you can't get much more, and then Lon Chaney, silent movies, horror films, those kind of things. But, and it doesn't get any better than King Kong. So there are exceptions, but those exceptions are building into the mid 30s for the start.
Yeah, all the bands I liked after that were all paying tribute to the Cramps, that was 50s and 60s music, just about everything, all those, in the 90s were all the surf bands and the bands that are in your movie and movies. And
I mean, I'm not going to leave the house to see any band play unless they reflect the past. But everything reflects the past in one way or the other, even though the internet is blowing the market model on how you can sell something and how you can put people to work and how people can make money. Despite all that, if you don't come back to some sort of integrity, even if it's the way you write a screenplay or whatever, to the 20th century in general, the heart of the 20th century, which also encompasses World War II and everything that comes out of that, then it doesn't hold my interest. That's not to say that I'm, what is it? Who gives a shit what my interest is? But I know what I like, and I can challenge. I can be pretty much a pseudo college professor on it. Without the benefits and the tenure, of course.
But I tell you, you really ought to think about doing a show on YouTube, just talking into your phone.
I would rather make sculptures and write screenplays and try
How
to make
about
money.
this? You would do a show where you show yourself sculpting it and have that for posterity on the internet.
But they look
show the progress on your sculptures.
Well, okay, good idea, maybe, but they look so ugly and pathetic when I'm doing them.
Yeah, but people need to, if it would be like, imagine if YouTube was around and they were showing the progress on the Statue of Liberty. It's like in France, look what we're doing now. We've got the toes made. We've got her tiara, her son tiara, whatever.
Yeah, I'm working on.
I think that with your knowledge and your collection and your personality and your talent, you should be doing a YouTube channel. I think people would flip out over it. And then you get publicity, then you could garner publicity for your tour and everything.
Do you see
look at that.
See my Bowie maquette? So Bowie went through at least 4 changes as Ziggy Stardust. He was Ziggy, he was Halloween Jack, he was Tokyo Pop, and he was Ziggy with eyebrows. And this is the Yamamoto Japanese suit that he wore on stage during the Aladdin Sane tour.
Wow.
And so, but this is the Aladdin Sane weather vane, because it shows you the changes that Bowie went through. So it wouldn't be an ordinary sculpture. It would be an art piece.
Well, could you get it for the top of your house and the head spin around with the wind? Hey, do you mind giving us a little more of a tour of your place, or you got to run?
Well, you want to save it for later?
Yeah, we could save it. My wife's probably getting mad at me going so long.
Well, I mean, she wouldn't be a wife if she wasn't doing that. Oh, look, there's Aladdin Sane in the background. But that's a huge ass poster that was gifted to me.
Yeah.
I'll show you. I don't know if you can see. So right now I'm working on some pop art to sell in a local festival.
Uh-huh.
Can you see that? Can you see
Yeah.
Blondie?
Oh, yeah.
Debbie Harry. So can you see Iggy
Yeah.
and the Pistols? And there's Iggy doing a back bend. So, oh, well, yeah, I'll show you some more stuff later, but
What would something like that sell for? What?
I got to figure that out. I got to figure it out. I got to finish them first, though, and I only have 9 days to create 10 to 12 pieces. And I've never done decoupage before, but I have a good friend here who's showing me how, recommending what I use and so forth. But we're going to have a booth called Punk Junk, and so I'm going to have these pop art pieces of photographs, and I'm going to like distort them and put glitter on them and spray fixative. And but the main thing is, I live in a neighborhood where people throw like cool stuff out sometimes. So, you know, if you try to buy a frame in a frame shop, it's super expensive. But if you just walk down your street, people throw out frames. So when people throw out picture frames, I cut masonite to the size of the frame, and then I do the paintings on top of them.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, someday I'd like to have a frame piece of your art. There was a art piece of art you did, like a sketch that Joe Riley had. I got a photocopy of it somewhere. And it was like bubblegum starlet, and it was like this girl. I think she had her hands behind her back. It was just a really cool. I'll find it someday and show it to you.
I have no memory of that, but you know, my mind is going. I think there's certain things that deserve, like, you know, showcasing and talking about and all that. But you know, if you can help me promote my Blu-rays and the fact that I'm coming into Iowa to show Teenage Tupelo,
right?
That I would love it for people to show up from Iowa, and it's maybe the last hurrah, because I'm too old to be doing this stuff like I used to do in the 90s, touring movies around at places and, you know, showing them.
Yeah. Well, that would be cool if you'd be able to drop by here. I don't know if it would be much out of your way, or.
Why don't you show up there and bring me like some steak and potatoes or something?
I'd like to. It's on a Thursday night, I think.
Why don't you show up and buy my dinner? That would be so amazing. Like I drove all the way to Iowa.
The thing is, I'm not good at driving at night, so I would need to probably stay overnight at a hotel.
Yeah.
And
driving is boring.
Yeah, well, it's not that. It's just an hour drive. But the other issue is I got to get my radiator replaced. So, but that's not until like Halloween around October, right? Maybe I can get it done by then.
Nobody wants to hear about your radiator on this.
I talk about it all the time. People like to hear about my problems because then they don't feel alone.
If you could get us all to pitch in a few bucks, you could get your radiator fixed.
Yeah, that would be nice if I had that super chat thing where people can just send you $20. Or I'll read your comment if you send me $20. I'm not one of those sophisticated people.
That's what the guy does on Nerdrotic.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
I haven't watched him in a while, but yeah, he's down in Texas now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he fled California.
And,
well,
I'm always going to be in Memphis. This is where I'm stuck, and I'm trying to pay for this 107-year-old house that I've had 3 mortgages on or whatever. And my daughter and my son are living here with me again, which is very cool. I'm very proud of that. And they're trying to figure out their path in life. And I think I'm still trying to figure out my path. And apparently it's leading me to Iowa. So, who knew? Maybe I'll just move in with you.
Well, you're welcome. Do you think you could stay for a few days or something? Or
no, because I got to get back here. So I have a nonprofit called Sculpt Memphis, and that's these sculptures, small statuettes that I'm making of Memphis musical heroes that I'm trying to. So when I get back, I'll probably start on another one like Isaac Hayes or something like that. And the idea is to find around 125 to 150,000 dollars with investment money, or sometimes projects, citywide or statewide projects, have 1% of their project total that they spend on public art. So there's a chance that I could get that money, maybe grants, I don't know, to basically
Just say that you need money for Ukraine,
right,
or for climate change, and they'll throw billions of dollars at you.
Yeah.
My statues fight climate change.
Well,
if I finish my statuette,
I'm just
there'll
trying
be
to,
no more carbon dioxide.
if you see these things, I'm just trying to, like, here's my Rufus Thomas. There's Aretha Franklin back there. Let me see. Sorry. There's Howlin' Wolf. There's Memphis Minnie.
It's so great because I'm seeing the Aurora model influence.
I know.
It's like I'm seeing the Phantom of the Opera there.
I know. Rufus is looking like the Phantom of the Opera. But he won't look so much like that when I put the funky chicken in front of him. So I'm going to have like a little funky chicken like down at the bottom of him. But I'm trying to get the word out on these things because every town, every city has a cultural legacy, has a musical legacy, has some sort of history that doesn't have to be bound up in politics, which separates people, because then we become the tools of the media companies.
Yeah.
If we just look back again to the heart of the 20th century and the wonderful people who created art without any pretense or corporation help or any of that bullshit, if we just remember those people, and maybe every town needs sculptures of certain people that helped the identity of the town, helped the identity of the United States of America.
Definitely.
So in Memphis, we have a plethora of blues artists and rockabilly and soul and gospel and rock and roll artists that deserve to be not handled in some abstract way, nothing against that, but abstraction is sort of an excuse also to avoid identity. And the identity and the visual, the visceral look of blues and rockabilly artists in the 50s and 60s is, to me, just as key or as important as the way superheroes looked.
Yeah.
They're visually, with it. They're just like they're using the costuming and the exotic, design skills of the era.
Yeah.
Like Elvis wearing Captain Marvel Jr. capes and things like that. So yeah, I got to go though. I probably need to get out of here.
I got to run. Well, it's sure nice talking to you, and we'll talk again soon.
Hey, love everybody that's listening in, and yeah, just let me know, and I'm going to send you that Teen Toot book. Maybe when you get the book, we can talk again.
Definitely, yeah, because then I can show it on the air. Yeah, we'll do a show special, not on a Wednesday night with everybody, but one where we could just talk for a couple hours. That would be great.
And my last recommendation, can you see the David Bowie poster?
Hold on, let me give you the full screen for a second. Not too. Yes, I can.
So that's the movie poster for Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, the final July 1973 concert.
Right.
And it just got re-released on Blu-ray, color corrected, digitally transferred. It's a D.A. Pennebaker 16 millimeter film that was shot with 2 or 3 cameras, and it was Ziggy Stardust's final show at the Hammersmith Odeon in London. And it's amazing, and it's very super heroic, but there's also a very low budget thing going on there too. And it's just the two things are oxymoronic and counterintuitive, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, I need to get that for sure.
Well, good luck finding it.
Well, can you get it like from the Amazon idiots or something?
Nope, I can't find it on Amazon. I think you have to go to Rough Trade or maybe some of these English import companies, which there's some English import companies that are selling things on auction that more rock and roll oriented, but are just amazing.
You know something significant that happened in the last few months that you need to know about if you don't already know is finally, after 60 years, close to 60 years, there's a Munsters soundtrack on CD with the actual music from the show. And they only made 2,000 CDs. It's not on vinyl; it's just on a CD.
Not to be confused with the Munsters LP that came out.
No, this is the actual background score.
Huh.
and it's a 2 CD set, and then there's some
Two
music from,
CDs?
I think Wagon Train, and on the other disc, and some another series that the same composer did. But it's for real, yeah. And it's last time I checked, they hadn't sold out of. I don't think they'll ever sell out of them. I don't think there's 2,000 cool people left on the planet Earth. And if there are more than that, they don't know that the Munsters soundtrack exists. I don't know how I found out about it, but it's definitely something worth
All right.
getting.
That might be good music to listen to when I'm sculpting.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the real music, and it's stereo. It's great. Anyway,
Dude, I had no idea.
talking to you.
I had no idea I was going to be talking to you like this for a couple of hours. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I'm glad you dropped in.
Thank you, sir.
But I'll see you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. And I'll see everybody next week. We'll be on Graphic Man Show next Wednesday, 7 o'clock Central. Take care, everybody. Bye.